As
1992, after the LA riots, President Clinton ordered the United States Forest Service to create some job opportunities for inner city kids, young adults. The Aztec program was formed 2 years after 1994. I myself wanted an opportunity, lived the life, and wanted to get out of the lifestyle already, and I joined the fire crew. The year after, I was in charge of 18 firefighters, led them into many fires all over the western states. In 1999, we received our first funding because we were giving opportunities for people that were involved in gangs, giving them the skills, the training, and making them firefighters. The Junior Aztec program started in 2003 only because I had younger kids that wanted to go fight fires. They were the little cousins, brothers, and Enrique, when can I go fight fires also? I go, you have to be 18 and over. But in 2003, I wrote a grant, criminal justice, and kind of gave that program the spin like the Aztec program. Kind of discipline, structure, punctuality, and respect for authority. I wanted to show that whatever the Aztec Fire Crew was learning, I gave it to the Junior Aztec also. And now we do also gang intervention with the city of Los Angeles in 5 council districts.
it seems like a lot of young people could benefit from this program. How do you find the kids to be involved in this program?
Word of mouth, the schools, probation officers. Many the contracts that I have with criminal justice, it requires us to recruit from kids that are in probation. We want to turn them around. So probation officers are referring. We're doing presentations in camps, juvenile halls, and in the local communities we do a lot of recruitment for those programs.
You know, we took our camera crew out to visit Aztecs Rising, and here's what we found.
If I wasn't in this program, I'll probably be in jail.
I had nowhere else to go, nowhere else to turn.
Change your lifeline right now, and you will be a successful person before you even get 1, 2, 3 strikes.
All 3 of these individuals are involved with Aztecs Rising, an organization providing opportunities for success for youth, adults, and families while breaking away from violence.
You can't go on living a reckless life. You can't. You're going to have to discipline yourself. I wanted to teach them a little bit of discipline, structure, respect for authority, kind of get them ready for adulthood, young adults.
Services are offered through 3 main programs: the Junior Aztec Fire Fuels Crew, and LA Bridges 2 Gang Intervention.
When they come to our program, they get to see many of our staff, productive members that have made it through life. They were used to live in that environment, and that are professionals, firefighters, case managers, you name it.
The 3 programs are designed to meet the needs of different age groups and issues that may surround them. While the Aztec Fire Fuel Crew assists young adults in becoming certified firefighters, the Junior Aztec Group is geared at high-risk youth ages 13 to 17.
Most of the kids that come to us are law enforcement referred to probation, school police, LAPD.
Everywhere you go, you're going to find somebody bigger and badder. Okay? So, think about it. Gangs, no knife, you're going to end up in a hospital or in jail.
Aztecs Rising also provides services in gang intervention, violence prevention, case management, and job training. For some, such as Israel Urita, who joined the program after high school, it has helped turn his life around as well as others.
You need something to get you moving, and this is it. This is something that is like a stepping stone if you want to really succeed.
Well, my future looks like right now, it looks like I'm going to get out of the ghetto. like go on, get my career started, and help my mom.
I believe in teaching the young gang member or gang member some skills to change that negative behavior, offer something in return. I cannot go my way talking to them, change, but if I don't offer anything. I want to offer them a solution, and our solution is get a job. We're going to give you the training. We're going to hold you by your hand. We're going to teach you the skills, the techniques that you need to make it. Bottom line, leave that lifestyle behind.
Yeah. 1, 2, 3.
Liliana, it's great to see a young woman involved in this type of a program. Tell me how you got involved with Aztecs Rising, and tell me how you think this is changing your life.
I got involved because I got referred by my probation officer. He referred me to that program, and it has helped me a lot because they showed me like other paths that I could go instead of being like just on the streets. Like it has me a lot. Like it has helped me a lot. Yeah.
And are you sharing it with some of your other friends and trying to get other people involved?
Yeah, my friends in the school, they ask me like, what do you do in that program? And I'm like, well, we just go and they take us hiking. We go to trips, and we just have fun. They just show us another way of living our life.
That's great. Joshua, I understand you were also on probation when you were involved initially with Aztecs Rising. Why don't you tell us a little bit about your past and how you think being involved with Aztecs Rising is going to change your future?
Well, before I got into the Aztecs, well, when I was young, around 13, going on 14, I was like just a mess out in the streets, right? And I really didn't care much about school or like meeting new people or trying to do something to improve my life with, you know? So, well, I just got too far into the mix where I got too caught up and going to jail back and forth, in and out all the time. And I met this this man named Manuel Guerrero who works with the Aztecs Rising and helped me get involved with them. And so they took me into the Aztecs over in Lincoln Heights. I sent a few applications, and after a while I just started going every Wednesdays, every Saturdays for cleanups, going around the neighborhood streets and just doing different things to help me prevent from going back in the streets with my gang members, you know? Going back into jail, going back to doing drugs or anything, you know? So I think it just helped me really a lot to realize that there's a lot better in life.
And I understand you're 18 now, so what could happen now that you weren't able to do before?
Now there's a lot I could do that I couldn't do before, you know? I just changed my way of thinking. I'm back in school. Before I wasn't in a regular high school. I was going to a little church where they just helped me get my credits up, but I'm back in high school. I did a whole week of an academy for the Aztecs Fire Fuels, and I'm a certified firefighter.
So you might be fighting some fires.
Yes, ma'am.
Maybe this summer.
Yes.
Do you want to be a firefighter as a career?
Yes, I do.
How about you, Liliana? What do you want to be?
Oh, I'm pursuing other dreams. I want to be a doctor, a pediatrician. Yeah, that's what I want to be, yeah.
That's great. But you have dreams, and you know now that you can achieve those dreams, both of you. Enrique, how is Aztecs Rising funded, and could you use some more money?
We could always use more money. We have a ratio of 30 kids per one case manager. It's a little bit too much. But we don't turn no one away. We want to help them. Currently, we're receiving funding from CDD for gang intervention.
From the City of Los Angeles.
City of Los Angeles, and criminal justice funding.
We know most programs like yours really are limited by the funding, and we know you could probably help a lot more young people if you had more funding, and we're going to work to make that happen.
Thank you.
Now, if there's somebody out there, young people that want to get involved with Aztecs Rising, or maybe there's some other people that want to be involved or help contribute to Aztecs Rising, where do they get more information?
They could call the phone number 323-441-0187 and just ask any person that answers the phone for whatever needs they have.
You know, if these kids weren't involved in Aztecs Rising, where do you think they'd be?
Well, probably in jail, on the streets. I seen so many kids come in and change their lives, and very productive on what they're doing now.
And do you keep track of the kids when they come through your program and find out where they are, what they're doing?
I'm the kind that since I started the fire program, I keep track of every person that has came through the program and what they're doing now.
Where are some of them now?
One, I just found out he became a sheriff with the County of Los Angeles. They're instructors in different colleges now, teaching firefighting courses. Firefighters everywhere. You name it, municipal, federal, everywhere. Everywhere I go to a fire station somewhere, I know somebody that came out of our program.
Thanks, Enrique, Liliana, Joshua. Thanks for being here today. And that's all the time we have for this program, but keep your eyes open for more shows highlighting other people and programs that are working to get rid of gangs by providing opportunities for young people, giving them something to say yes to so that they can say no to gangs. I invite you to get in touch with me if you have any questions or suggestions. My office phone number and email address will be on the screen in a moment. Until next time, thank you for watching, and goodbye.
It's time for the 12th annual LADWP Holiday Light Festival in Griffith Park from November 26th through December 30th from 5 to 10 p.m. Vehicles can enter at Los Feliz Boulevard. Walkers may park at the LA Zoo parking lot. Shuttle service is available from the LA Zoo parking lot on weekends and December 14th through the 30th. For more information, go to www.dwplightfestival.com or www.ladwp.com. Happy holidays from the LADWP.
LA City View Channel 35. Your city, your channel.
Come to Hollywood Santa Parade, Sunday, November 25th at 5 p.m. at Hollywood and Highland. Call 866-PARADE-1 for more information. Good morning, Los Angeles, and welcome to the City Council meeting for Wednesday, November 21st, 2007. We are in the John Ferraro Memorial Council Chambers in room 340 of City Hall. We meet here every Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday at 10 a.m. The first Friday of the month we meet in Van Nuys City Hall, but otherwise we are here downtown in City Hall. I'm Council President Eric Garcetti, and I'm joined by my fellow colleagues, Council Members Alarcon, Huizar, Labange, Rosendahl, Weiss, Wesson, and Zine. I want to welcome our viewers on Channel 35, where we are broadcast live through our city's cable system. We're also rebroadcast each evening that we meet. And we are available also through our computers at lacity.org, where we have live streaming webcasts of all of our council meetings and archive video footage of our past council meetings as well. Finally, you can always listen to us via your telephone at 213-621-CITY. That's 213-621-CITY, which is a great way to listen to the council meetings or any of our committee meetings as well. If you'd like to give public comment on any of the items that have been agendized for a public hearing, meaning that they have not received a public hearing in committee, please fill out a speaker card in the back and give it to one of the sergeants at arms. We'd be happy to include that and make sure that your testimony is heard on those items. Our agendas are available online at lacity.org, in person at the city clerk's office, or here in council chambers. You can always testify in Van Nuys City Hall if that is closer to where you live. Our apologies for technical difficulties yesterday with that, but we should be back up and running today. That gives us a chance to see you via video conferencing here in council chambers. Vice versa, when we're in Van Nuys, you can always come down here to City Hall, and we will be able to watch you in the Van Nuys chambers. If you'd like to be heard on general comments of a nature that are nevertheless under the jurisdiction of Los Angeles City, you can fill out a speaker card in the back as well for general public comment, and we'll make sure to hear those items. We have 9 members present. We require 2/3 of our 15-member body or 10 members to be present to constitute a quorum. I want to thank the council members who are here pursuant to council rules on time. Council members Alarcon, Cardenas, Huizar, Labange, Rosendahl, Weiss, Wesson, and Zine. 3 council members are excused for city business today. Ms. Gruhl, Mr. Labange, although he is here, so he gets bonus points, and Mr. Smith. We thus are waiting for Councilwoman Hahn, Councilmember Parks, Councilmember Perry, and Councilmember Reyes to join us. As soon as we have one of those members, we will begin the meeting. Thank you all for your patience. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alarcon, Cardenas, Gruhl, Hahn, Huizar, Labange, Parks, Perry, Reyes, Rosendahl, Smith, Weiss, Wesson, Zine, Garcetti, 11 members present and a quorum, Mr. President.
All right, thank you. Next item, please. First order of business?
Approval of the minutes.
All move by Mr. Garcetti.
And Mr. Vice
No objection?
So approved. Next order of business.
Next order of business.
Commendatory resolutions for approval.
I'll move again.
I'll move again. Mr. Garcetti's moving. He's moving and rocking and rolling. Seconded by Mr. Alarcon. No objection? Approved. Next.
And Mr. President, I believe there is a presentation.
Presentation time. Well, we have a special presentation with Mr. Garcetti and Mr. Labange. Special presentation time. Eric, you lead. All the way. How are you?
Thank you very much, Mr. President, and a very good morning to everybody. We're very excited to be here. This is the last meeting before we break for Thanksgiving. But as we all know, there is a tradition here in Los Angeles, a tradition which happens every first Sunday after Thanksgiving, to mark the beginning of the holiday season here in Los Angeles. And for 75 years, what was first the Santa Lane Parade in Hollywood, then the Christmas Parade, the Santa Parade this year, literally more than 100,000 Angelinos come together to celebrate the season in the heart of Los Angeles. So our city council chambers have neither a fireplace nor a chimney, but this morning we have opened our doors to a very special person who spreads cheer to millions of people around the world. He has many names. I think we've all seen him as youngsters and as adults. He's somebody who has come to us from very far north, and a man who is responsible for figuring out who's been naughty, who's been nice. I'm told that Santa, just like all good people, sometimes has to take a little break. So he is ready. He is stuck, and the sleigh is coming, but as soon as I get the thumbs up...
I think here we come.
Please welcome Santa Claus.
Live from City Council, it's Santa Claus.
Hello, everyone.
Hello, Santa. Welcome. Santa, welcome to Los Angeles City Council.
Well, we are so excited to have you here, Santa, and I know on Sunday that you're going to be helping the city of Los Angeles kick off the holiday season when you host your own parade in Hollywood. So we know we're going to be very busy for the following month after that, getting all the presents together and getting ready for all the children. But the Santa Parade will begin at 5 p.m., and children of all ages are invited to come down to Hollywood and Highland to join the festivities. The parade is free, as it has been every year, but grandstand seats are still available for $35 by calling 1-866-PARADE-1. That's 1-866-PARADE-1. For city employees, too, we have a special discount, $25 for city employees, so we encourage them to join us as well. This is the first year that the city of Los Angeles is responsible for the Santa Parade. The Chamber of Commerce for 75 years did a great job, but we wanted to make sure that Santa could come back to Hollywood because he loves Hollywood and we love Santa. We're also encouraging spectators to go metro and to take public transit to the parade, whether that's by bus or by rail. And as I mentioned, for nearly 75 years, Santa has marched down the boulevard. Doesn't he look great? I mean, 75 years he's been there, and he doesn't look a day over 75. Fabulous floats, Hollywood celebrities. And when the Chamber of Commerce decided that it was time for them to pack up after 75 great years, the community made it clear that they didn't want this parade to go away. So with my colleague Tom LaBonge, we stepped up, and the city of Los Angeles is producing the parade for the first time, and we're very excited about keeping this tradition alive. Despite the limited time we've had to plan this year, we hope that it honors the festive spirit and the pageantry of previous parades. And I want to thank General Services, Channel 35, and my staff, especially Ana Guerrero, for their great work. Let's give them a round of applause for everything they've done to save Santa. We're very excited to have a lot of celebrities who have agreed to be part of the parade. Of course, Santa is the biggest of all, but we've got folks including the cast of Disney's High School Musical. We've got cast members from Ugly Betty, The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody, and we've got some of the dancers from Dancing with the Stars, which I know Ms. Perry is a big fan of. We will be honoring the men and women of Southern California's fire departments as well, who helped save lives during the recent fires. I'll let Mr. LaBonge speak a little bit more about that. And we have dozens of floats, bands, and equestrian units that will help us kick off the holiday season in style. And we are truly honored to have as our Grand Marshal a person who is a true television legend. He earned 17 Emmy Awards, including the Lifetime Achievement Award for daytime television during the 35 years that he hosted The Price is Right. So it is my great pleasure to introduce him today by saying, Bob Barker, come on down. Ladies and gentlemen, our Grand Marshal, Bob Barker. Come on,
you ready to say a few words right now?
Yes, certainly I'll say a few words. I want to first of all take this opportunity to thank the City Council for stepping in and saving the parade.
Well,
I really
appreciate that.
And particularly, I want to thank you, Tom, and you, Eric.
Thank you very much.
Because you have really gone beyond the call of duty. I think this parade has become a great tradition. It gives people in Hollywood and in Los Angeles and all the surrounding communities an opportunity, all black, white, brown, join together, have fun, and join as one voice to acknowledge that come what may, Hollywood is indeed still the entertainment capital of the world. Now, I'm going to do one thing a little differently this year, so far as the parade is concerned. I know over the years, the Grand Marshal, he rides along and he says, "Merry Christmas," and he says, "Happy New Year." Well, I'm going to say, "Merry Christmas and Happy New Year, and have your pets spayed or neutered." Thank you.
Bob,
Thank
we
you, Bob.
have
Tom
this
LaBonge.
commendation for you, and what is so special about Bob and his work is, as Eric spoke of, the acclaim you've got in your industry. But what's so wonderful, Bob lives in Hollywood. Bob has lived in Hollywood. He came to Hollywood, his wife, and he lived right around the corner from Hollywood Boulevard on Las Palmas in an apartment in Selma, just when he came to Los Angeles many, many years ago. So on behalf of the City Council, we want to salute you as the Grand Marshal and participating to help us promote this parade. You're truly an angel in the City of Angel. Bob Barker.
Thank you. Thank you.
We have some comments from the council members.
Yeah, hold on there, Mr. President. We just want to make a few more comments right here. I want to ask everybody, especially the staff, to recognize, as Mr. Garcetti, Anna Guerrero for the great hard work she has done. Anna, get out here with us there. And also General Services, as Mr. Garcetti spoke of. This is a great special event. We will have a Sister City float in there. And I'll tell you why the parade is so special. Last year when we were in the parade, we had our banners for our Sister City. I went to the FedEx Kinko on the Miracle Mile. And the clerk who was helping me had just come from Louisiana, relocated because of Katrina here. She lived at 65th in Maine. I told her about the parades, Anna. She didn't know about it. Sure enough, when my wife Bridget and I and children were going down the parade, I told her how to take the Metro there. Right when we got to Ivar, right before Vine Street, this woman and her child were there because they could celebrate with all the rest of the Angelinos in a great parade. It's a parade for the people. It's a parade for the holiday season. And I'm very proud of our president of the City Council, Mr. Garcetti, because Hollywood is everybody's boulevard. Everybody's hopes and dreams get found on Hollywood Boulevard, and I'm pleased to help support this and be there in our Sister City parade as well. We'll join into that great parade, and I invite you all to come out and take Metro there. So, Mr. President, I thank you, and we'll move forward as we get ready for Sunday's big event.
As we move forward, Mr. Cardenas.
Yeah, Bob Barker, I'm so glad that you mentioned about spay and neutering animals. I know how committed you are to that incredible cause, but also you mentioned it's going to be a parade where everybody's invited. You mentioned people, but I just wanted to remind all of us that Cesar Millan is going to be there as he was last year. He's otherwise known as the Dog Whisperer. And if you see a chocolate lab with him, please say hello to Coco, because that's our chocolate lab. He's invited her to be with him over the last year, and I think he's going to invite her again. So that's our spayed dog. And I just wanted to, you know as well as I do, we can never overemphasize the responsibility of human beings to make sure that we spay and neuter our animals. And thank you so much for taking every opportunity to keep us reminded of that and keep us responsible. And congratulations.
Well spoken, and give Coco a kiss for me.
I just want to give a couple personal observations. When I was a child, my dad used to take me and my brother to the Hollywood Santa Claus Lane Parade. And then when I was a member of the LAPD, I worked it on foot and I worked it on a motorcycle. And now as a council member riding it, it's gone full circle in my years here as an Angelino. But Bob, I want to mention to you that the price is free. A free parade. And Mr. Garcetti, I want to commend you for making this happen along with Tom LaBonge. You guys represent that area for bringing this back. You didn't give the parade route. You mentioned Hollywood and Highland, but if you can mention the parade route, Sunday, 5 o'clock, and just mention the parade route, please.
Okay. It will start at Hollywood and Highland and Orange, actually. The grandstands will be between Orange and Highland on Hollywood Boulevard, and then it will go eastbound on Hollywood. It'll take its traditional turn south on Vine Street, So, and that's a great place to go as well. You can take the subway there. It'll then go back west on Sunset Boulevard till it hits orange again, and that's the end of the parade.
The traditional parade route. So, Santa, we're looking forward to seeing you on Sunday, this coming Sunday.
If we can turn it over to Santa to say brief something, and then we have a special little lottery here for a lucky city employee. So, Santa, a few words from you.
Santa Claus.
Santa Claus. Ho, ho, ho.
I do want to thank everyone for being here today, and including Janice. I know she's been trying to be very good, right? Okay. All the children, all the Angelinos, all the children, the big kids too. You know, we want all of you to come out, join us on the parade Sunday, 5 o'clock. It's going to be a wonderful, wonderful time for everyone in Southern California. Thank you, Santa.
Santa, you're going to make a drawing now?
This year, since this is city themed, what we did is we try and encourage city employees to join us. And one of the things that we put in is any city employee who bought a grandstand ticket would be put in a lottery to ride with Santa on his float. So I'm going to ask Santa to pull one name out of this Christmas bag here, and let's see who's going to be the lucky.
The lucky winner is
Kathy Bushy. Kathy Bushy will be
I think she works for the LAPD.
For LAPD, all right, wonderful. Well, we look forward to seeing Kathy on the float. We look forward to seeing all of you. Thank you again to Bob Barker. Thank you, Tom LaBonge, and thank you to Santa and Janice Hahn.
And I'd like to ask right now, let's just take a minute before Thanksgiving, a group shot with Bob.
Group shot with
Santa,
Bob and
everybody
Santa.
right here. Come on now.
To the center table. All council members to the center table.
Thank you. We'll do a quick shot. Thank you very much, Mr. President. All right, we're going to go into here. We'll take a quick shot.
Mr. LaBonge, center table. A brief intermission for the photograph.
Thank you, everybody, for that holiday indulgence, and we will now move forward with going through the agenda. If we can please run through the agenda, Madam Clerk.
First item, Mr. President, is an item notice for public hearing. Item number 1 is a finding of public convenience or necessity in Council District 11, and I believe there are cards.
There are, so we will call that special for cards from the public. Next item.
Next item, item number 2, Planning Land Use Management Committee report has been submitted, and I believe there are cards also on that one, and it has had a public hearing in committee.
Okay, we will call Mr. City Attorney.
Can we hold that one on the desk until we figure some things out?
Yes, of course. We will hold that one as well. Next items.
Next items are items for which public hearings have been held, items 3 through 12. Item number 3 is the commissioner. Do you wish to hold that on the desk?
Yes, please. Let's hold number 3 on the desk.
And item number 4, the commissioner has submitted a request to withdraw her name from consideration, and council may receive and file the mayor's nomination if it wishes.
Okay, we'll move to receive and file that. Specials from 5 through 12. Ms. Hahn?
Yeah, I'd like to send 12 to Transportation Committee. I think this is a huge issue about reducing parking, and I think the Transportation Committee ought to take this up.
Okay. Is there any objection to sending Mr. Reyes?
I'd like to call it special and have that discussion before we do that automatically.
Okay, we'll call it special. We'll keep your motion on the table for that.
Okay.
Mr. Reyes, yes, Mr. Parks?
Number 7, we want to hold till we get some clarification from the city attorney. Okay. And then 11, we have an amending motion circulating.
Has that been circulated, Madam Clerk? Do we know?
No, it hasn't.
Okay, we'll hold that till that is circulated. All right, any other specials, colleagues? We have 5 and 6 and 8 through 10. Seeing none, let's go ahead and open the roll on the balance. Please close the roll and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Those are approved. Next items, please.
Next items are items for which public hearings have not been held, items 13 through 23. 10 votes are required for consideration.
Okay, we do not have any cards on those, so we'll open and close the public hearings. Any specials, colleagues, 13 through 23? 13 through 23. Now it's time to call anything special. Seeing none, Madam Clerk, if we can take up those items, please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
And 20 was approved as part of that, and all of those will go forward as well. Next items, please.
Next items, Mr. President, are the closed session items. There is a card on 24, and there's a request to continue item number 25 to Tuesday, which is November 27th.
Okay, thank you, Madam Clerk. Is there any objection to continuing 25 until the 27th of this month, colleagues? Seeing no objection, we will continue 25. We'll call 24 special for cards from the public, and we will also hold the others on the desk for closed session. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, is item number 28 on the continuation agenda, and that is confirmation of a commissioner.
Okay. We will hold that on the desk as well. Any other items, Madam?
No, that would take council back to public comment and the items called special.
Okay. Hold on one sec. All right, we'll take public comment right now then. Noel Weiss is our first speaker, and then after that will be Chuck Tenen.
Council members, good morning. In my little travels here around the city in the last year and a half ago, I think that I wanted to alert the council of the fact that there may be some serious issues as far as credibility, confidence. I think the coin of the realm for this city council is their moral authority, the ability of the council to be able to properly and appropriately communicate to the public their ideas. What's happening is, with these general appeal processes, I don't see that that we're getting a proper vetting of the ideas. And in fact, the process appears to be more calculated to deny the ability of you, the decision makers who act as judges in these appeals, to be able to make reasonable, informed judgments. And I think that's wrong, and I think that's incorrect. In addition, I just wanted to I think there's another issue, a collateral issue that is being raised relative to a question about whether or not developer volunteered conditions in general can be enforced, even though there's no specific law passed by the City Council. This has been raised in the context of tenant-related conditions, where, for example, we have no specific policy that says teachers, firemen, policemen get a 3% or 5% discount, but that's a good public policy. The community plan allows for it. The community plan, in fact, is the law. And when we have developer agreements that provide for that, are they enforceable? The answer is yes. However, when we get to the tenant side of the equation, then all of a sudden, the city attorney comes in and he says, unless there's a specific law providing for it, can't be done. This is something that needs to be evaluated and thought out very carefully because the City Council needs to have the flexibility. You can't legislate everything. These developer agreements are important to basically move forward policies of the City Council. And if we're going to do that, we need to be open and honest and straightforward with the people and also maintain that credibility. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Chuck Tenon. After that will be Arnold Sachs.
Good morning, council members, President Garcetti. Happy Thanksgiving. I have always had the utmost respect for all the council members in making decisions on items that serve the people in this great city. Robert Janovic, a zoning administrator, said that staff should never write out language for an individual or give advice as to the possible outcome of an appeal or underlying action. Under the table deals that undermine our values and proper objectives and fair decisions by the city that serve the people of this city, like me, Chuck Tenon, sometimes is unfair. What I would like to ask President Garcetti, we went to Plum Committee yesterday. There was a controversial tape on a very critical, controversial issue on item number 2 agenda, and I would like to ask President Garcetti if I might play this tape, because one of the things on there, when somebody makes a statement that says you will win an appeal no matter what does that mean? And I ask you this, and I would like an answer, and also there's a part of it that questions my credibility and my integrity, which is honorable. And so I ask that this tape be played today so that a fair decision can be made. And I know I gave you all packages on something on the item, but does anybody ever read it? Because Tony Cardenas said the legislative body of this council makes their decision based on what's presented to them. Well, what about from the other side? Do we get to present things too? Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Mr. Sachs, Arnold Sachs. That'll be our final speaker on general.
Just one moment. Somebody left their glasses up here.
All right, we'll hold your time.
Thank you.
Can you give him back his 2 minutes, please? Thank you.
2 seconds.
I want to be fair.
Fair?
All right, now your time's running. Your time is now running.
Mr. President, can I get my time back for returning your glasses? Thank you.
You got that back. But now it's running.
Good morning. Thank you very much. Just quickly, 2 items. There's been a lot written lately about the latest pay raise for the city councils, and I'm a little bit confused and concerned. I know it was enacted basically by a law from the state legislature. They're in a pocket of LA again. Does this concern all city councils throughout the state and all council members that are on these city councils and city attorneys throughout the state? Are they also affected by this pay raise? And if they're not, then the law becomes very biased in granting raises to certain individuals and not to all individuals. And then yesterday on your agenda, unfortunately I was at the County Board of Supervisors, there was an item agendized regarding a billboard, and again from the LA Times in Monday's paper on the 12th, I'd just like to quote, on a related note, here's a billboard fun fact. Last September, 2 billboard firms agreed to take down nearly 600 signs that had been installed in LA without permits. As of last week, 2 had been demolished. We taking any action on this? What's up? Thank you. And also, have a good holiday.
Thank you. Happy holiday. Happy Thanksgiving to you. Next item we're going to take out of order, number 28, please.
And number 28 was called special for cards from the public also.
You want to take the...
All right, we'll take the public comment.
We'll take the public comment cards first.
Public comment first on number 28. And we have 2 cards on 28. Dennis Hathaway, Arnold Sachs. Dennis Hathaway, please, on number 28.
Thank you. I'm a resident of Council District 11. I'm active in my community. I'm working for positive change through my neighborhood council, through other groups on issues of land use and planning, housing, on homelessness. And I think there's a perception in our community, in a lot of communities in LA, that our voices are not always heard as clearly down here in City Hall as the voices of the lobbyists and the interests they represent, the corporate interests, the land developers. And we actually see the Ethics Commission as a kind of ray of light in that system by fulfilling its mission not only to uphold the letter of the ethics laws, but in actually promulgating initiatives that will make the government more responsive, more open, more transparent, more responsive to its citizenry, to give the citizenry a greater voice. And in this appointment, you have a person who is a member, who is a partner in the largest law firm in this city. This is a law firm that does hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of business with the city. This is a law firm that represents clients that do business with the city and that want to do business with the city. This is a law firm that has its own PAC to do campaign contributions. And I want to ask you what kind of message you want to send to us in the communities who are working for change, who want our voices heard here in the city. Do you want to send a message that it's going to be business as usual in City Hall? Or do you want to send a more positive message that you want to encourage the work of the Ethics Commission in such things as having full public financing of campaign contributions, in making the government more transparent, more responsive to us, the citizenry in our local communities? And I think by rejecting this appointment, you can send that positive message to us.
Thank you. Mr. Sachs, on item number 28, please.
Yes, good morning. Thank you again, Arnold Sachs. Unfortunately, I would have liked to have known if Mr. Caminez had been in the council chambers, because I would have liked to have asked him about his ideas or opinion regarding the item I brought before City Council last week in regards to the lobbying done by a former City Council member who was working as a lobbyist, quote unquote, on behalf of companies before the City Council, or before the city, and different proprietary departments. And then it was reported in the LA Times, and he met with several council members. And then last week, it was also reported that he finally registered as a lobbyist. So on one hand, you have rules and regulations that are supposed to be enforced, and yet nobody enforces the rules and regulations. And there seems to be a misconnection here. And so here's a person coming before the City Ethics Commission, hopefully with some new ideas, maybe. If the previous speaker was right, there's certainly some ethics to be looked into before he's even appointed for the department head as a member of the commission. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Sachs. Matters now number 28. Mr. Garcetti.
Thank you. If I could invite Mr. Camunez forward to the table. Colleagues, before us is the nominee under the city charter. The Ethics Commission is not only, I believe, the strongest ethics commission in the country. We have the strongest ethics laws in the country, without a doubt, which we all know directly. But we also have had one of the strongest commissions in recent years that we've seen, one that is focused in on and made national news for going after not just the kind of fraud, waste, and abuse issues, but real criminal activity. It has established a bar. It has put forward very clearly what I think is the right move to look at policy and not just enforcement, but both. And so under the charter, there are a number of people who appoint the commissioners, and as council president, it's one of my responsibilities to find the best person that I can to represent the city and our ethics commission and our ethics system here for the council. I know that man is Michael Comunez, and I want to thank him for stepping forward on what is a very intense sacrifice to represent the people of Los Angeles on the Ethics Commission, something that cuts to the heart of whether democracy is strong and whether it functions well. I know Michael Comunez. I know his ethics. I know his character. I know his level of trust for all of us, and he is somebody who is as strong as anybody in this city. I take this appointment very seriously, and whether it's his experience serving at the national level, in the Clinton administration, helping bipartisan commissions, helping look at issues from welfare reform to national service, the way he's seen from the inside out how government works is very critical, because we want commissioners who understand and who have served in government, I believe, as well as commissioners who have never been inside government. But he also is somebody who understands, I think, the importance in this city of keeping that trust with the people. I very respectfully disagree with the first public speaker. We have the strictest recusal laws, and this is something which will be very clear, I think, in all of our ethics undertakings. He happens to work at one of the finest law firms, but when Warren Christopher was the head of the Christopher Commission, he was somebody who served this city well. When he was the Secretary of State of the United States of America, he served this country well. And from that same firm, Mr. Comunez comes, but he has served in many, many different ways to this country, to this state, and to this city. I would ask your support today for Mr. Comunez, and I hope that if you have any questions as well, that you will put those forward. I did not appoint my father to the Ethics Commission. My predecessor, Alex Padilla, did. But when the space opened up, loving my father and having a lot of respect for him, those are tough shoes to fill. Michael Comunez will do that very ably. He will represent the city. One of the things on the Ethics Commission is we wanted to reflect what this city looks like. We wanted to reflect the full scope and span of this city's greatness, and I think that he'll bring youth. He will bring a background that is both lawyerly but also very human, a combination which will make sure that he can enforce the laws, expand laws where we need to, but also bring common sense and bring policy thought to our ethics system. So with that, I'd like to give Michael the opportunity to say a few things about his interests. I want to thank him for stepping up, because this is a sacrifice for folks. I think Mr. Saltzman, who's now moving on to the Police Commission, can give a testimony to that shortly of just how much work there is involved, but it's worth the work, because it really does allow people to believe in the system, to believe in the heart of democracy, and believe in government. So thank you, Michael, and with that, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, members of the City Council, good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to be with you this morning and for your consideration of my nomination to the Los Angeles City Ethics Commission. I feel very privileged to have the opportunity to serve my community prospectively as a member of the Ethics Commission, a body I hold in very high regard. In establishing the Commission, the citizens of Los Angeles expressed a strong desire to support an independent entity appropriately detached from the political process that would work to ensure an open, fair, and honest system of government in our city. These values of transparency and integrity are hallmarks of a well-functioning democracy and values I'm committed to upholding. I believe my record in public service to date reflects my own values and my commitment to building civic institutions that strengthen our communities and the public's trust and faith in government. I also believe my education and professional training as an attorney will be a valuable resource for the Commission and its staff, with whom I look forward to working and collaborating. I appreciate very much the confidence that Council President Garcetti has expressed in me by nominating me to this important position of public trust, and I want to assure each of you that I will conduct myself in a manner deserving of that confidence. I appreciate your consideration, and I welcome your comments or questions at this time.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. I always feel a little awkward when we confirm an ethics commissioner to actually speak to the commissioner and question the commissioner, so I'm going to just be oblique, and I'm going to speak to the council president, because I don't know how many folks on the council know this, but you started talking about this appointment with me, Mr. Garcetti, at least a year ago. It might literally be more than a year ago that you had on your mind the issue of what were you going to do with this appointment. And because there are different levels of appointments in this city. We're going to approve Dean Saltzman in a few moments to the Police Commission. But this one is unlike all the other city appointments that one makes. This one truly lives a life of its own. It's free and clear from the moment the ink is dry on this vote today. And you gave it well over a year's worth of thought. I know that you went through different possibilities in your mind, different individuals, different backgrounds, different types of folks. And you actually told me from time to time you're going to be really impressed with the decision that you made. You told me this. And I was intrigued by who it would be, but I really had no idea. And until I didn't get any warning that this was who you were going to pick, I could not be more impressed today. It is a real testament to how seriously you took this responsibility. That, as I say, if you stay council president for the next 5 years, or if you leave tomorrow, it doesn't matter. This appointment will be off. This appointee will be off on his own, independently, making decisions that affect the city. And I just want to. It's trite because politicians commend each other all the time, and you and I talk about that, and it's kind of one of the worst attributes of being in this business. But I don't do it a lot, and I really want to commend you for making this decision. That was obliquely about you, Mr. Comedian.
Thank you, Mr. Weiss. Mr. Huizar.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. And Mr. Garcetti, I think this is an excellent appointment as we look at Mr. Communis' pro bono work and standing in the legal community. We know he's of upstanding character. I do have one point to make, Mr. Communis. This past year, the voters approved Measure Al, which for the first time allowed the city to look at some of the campaign finance issues over at the school district. For a long time, there was very little oversight or enforcement of any of the rules that the school district had in terms of their campaigning. It set contribution limits. It set some new ethics rules that the district should follow. Unfortunately, that did not follow up with sufficient funding, in my mind, to give to the Ethics Commission to do a lot of the work it would need to do to provide the oversight. I commend the Ethics Commission for the work they have been doing. They're stretched thin. But I would ask, as you move forward, should you be confirmed today, which I think you will, that you keep that in mind, that you now not only have the responsibility to oversee the policy and enforcement of our ethics rules here in the city of Los Angeles, but also the school district. And it's a new frontier, but I hope that the Ethics Commission will take up that new responsibility seriously, which I think the Commission has so far, but I think we also need to do a little bit more to ensure that we're doing everything we can, that we have fair and transparent campaign processes over at the school district. Thank you very much.
Council member, I appreciate your comments, and I do assure you that I will give that my utmost consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Huizar. Mr. Cardenas, followed by Mr. Rosendahl.
Congratulations on giving up more of your free time. We appreciate that. This is a tremendous service to the city of Los Angeles and to the constituents of making sure that we have a commission that is actually doing their job and making sure that everybody's doing what they're supposed to do, whether they're running for office or they're high filer staff people around the city. We need to make sure that the people of Los Angeles know that things are in order and that people are following the rules. There's two things I wanted to point out and ask you a question on. How do you feel about the difference between, for example, say somebody's turning in a document and it's 30, 40, 50, 60 pages, and each page has several lines on it. So basically they're informing the commission, the Ethics Commission, of maybe 300 or so activities. And you find out, the staff brings to the commission's attention that there may have been an omission of some information or what have you, or a particular line item was incomplete. To me, that could be perceived as though it is like a clerical error or an accounting error. Do you see a difference between that kind of error and something where the staff may bring it forward to you and say, you know what, I think that they on purpose tried to mislead us in this form and either omitted information or misled us? Do you think that there's a difference in that intent? And also, if in fact there is a difference in that intent, should there be a difference in what the penalty should be? My time, please. Mr. President, my time. Go ahead.
Thank you, Council Member. I think you raise an important point, and certainly my background as an attorney, I often deal with issues of intent in assessing and trying to evaluate an individual's conduct. I guess I would say that it's very difficult to comment in the abstract on a particular hypothetical without you can appreciate that different circumstances might influence the outcome. But
hold on, my time, please.
No problem.
Well, hold on, forget about that hypothetical. Give me your opinion about an incident where there's intent and an incident where it's just an error.
Well, clearly the city has a rigorous set of guidelines and regulations which are intended to promote and foster complete transparency in the election process. And I think it's incumbent upon office holders and those who seek office to ensure that their staffs fully comply with those regulations. And so I guess I'd start with the premise that there's an expectation of a rigorous and zealous attempt to comply with those regulations. I do think that there are circumstances when there would be a difference between an intentional violation and an unintentional violation, a negligent omission, let's say. How those circumstances arise, I think, are very fact-specific, and they would be subject to, of course, the due investigation of the Commission staff, and I think it would be incumbent on the Commission to evaluate those circumstances individually. I'm not prepared to say that there's never an instance where we have where there's strict liability, where any technical violation should always be punished with the same rigor as a knowing violation. I think obviously there is a significant difference between one who knowingly willfully violates a regulation and a provision, and one who innocently, negligently does so. But it's very hard to say, Council Member, other than to say I do recognize that there's a distinction between a knowing and willful violation and a negligent violation. As to how those should be punished, I think we have to look to what the law provides. And, of course, it's the role of the Commission to exercise its judgment, and I would hope that I would exercise that judgment fairly and objectively and with an appropriate measure of attention to the mission of the Commission, but also an appreciation for the realities of how things happen in life. But I do think it's important that we begin with the premise that we have a rigorous set of laws that are intended to be enforced, and that we have very high expectations, and that we hold our elected officials and our candidates to high expectations as well.
Well, I do concur that we do have high expectations. We need to keep those high expectations in this city. Yet at the same time, I need to ask you this question: Who is the decision making? Who makes the decisions with this commission? Is it the appointed board, or is it the staff?
Well, I believe it's very clear that the Commission is the ultimate decision-making body that reviews and ultimately adopts or rejects or modifies the recommendations of the staff.
Okay, I think that's very important, because I'm just going to warn you that sometimes what happens, especially a new commissioner, you're new on this commission, I presume you've never been on this commission before.
That's correct.
Okay, and you're going to have staff that may have been there for months, some staff that may have been there already for 10 and even 20 years, and they're probably pretty articulate and kind of do things pretty quickly, and they know what they're doing. But at the same time, I need to warn you that please make sure that you take every situation and try to spend the kind of time and internalize it for yourself before you make your decisions, because even before these cameras in this body here, we've actually been told by some of our staff, by their recommendations, this is the right thing to do. Actually literally saying, you know what, you really are not, you don't understand this the way we do, and it's recorded. And then when we disagreed with that individual, even at one instance, another colleague said, well, let's do a forensic report on that particular matter. because we had that discussion and that disagreement with our high-level staff who've been here for decades. And then what happened was, fortunately for the city, we did not go with the staff recommendation, and we were in fact correct, and that forensic report actually showed that the city benefited tremendously by making decision A instead of decision B. So I just want to let you know, you've got good staff, you've got aggressive staff, and that's wonderful. But at the same time, please remember, don't ever forget, the decision is yours and for you and your colleagues, regardless of how strongly a staff person may feel about a particular situation.
Thank you, Councilman. I appreciate your comments, and I just want to assure you and your colleagues that I understand that I'm being nominated to serve in an important fiduciary role, and that's a fiduciary responsibility that I take seriously. I appreciate very much that ultimately I am accountable for my decisions, and I intend to exercise to the best of my ability the appropriate degree of diligence and analysis that I would the same kind of work that I apply to my private clients in my law firm, I will apply to the same level of effort to my work on behalf of the city and the people of the city. And I give you my word that I will do my best to be fair and objective.
Thank you for offering yourself to this important task, and like I said, my condolences to your family. They're going to see less of you, I'm sure, but thank you so much for volunteering and your willingness to do this important job. Thank you.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning.
Good morning.
Thanks for stepping up to the plate. O'Melveny and Myers is one of the major law firms in the city. It does a lot of business with the city, both one side, the other side, this and that, back and forth. Do you see any conflict at all with you going on this Ethics Commission and being a member of that firm?
Council member, you raise a good question, and I've given a lot of thought to that, and I candidly discussed it with Council member Garcetti and his staff as I was being appointed. I don't see any conflict. I am not currently, neither myself nor, I am presently not engaged in any activities that come before the city. Certainly my firm has in the past represented clients, has actually represented the city more often than not. There are, I think, very careful and well-developed recusal policies. I'm very sensitive to the perception, if not the reality, and would certainly be sure to recuse myself if there ever were a matter. I am not aware of a single instance certainly in the recent past, I'd say the last decade, where we've represented an individual before the Ethics Commission, for example. Certainly that would pose an obvious conflict. I would be sure to recuse myself. But also, I think if there were an instance where my firm, members of mine and my firm were involved in litigation or in a matter that concerned an item that in any way could come before the Ethics Commission, I would be certain to recuse myself. So I don't see, although I appreciate that because of the size of the firm and the extent of the work that we do throughout the country, including in Los Angeles, that there could be that perception, but I'm very confident, Council member, that there's no conflict, and I can, through the appropriate recusal measures, manage any conflicts that might even be perceived to exist as they arise.
I certainly appreciate that because, perception becomes reality in politics more than facts and truths and all of that. And we know how it's played out. And it's very important that there's a wall between your law firm and your role as a commissioner of all of us on ethics. What's your take on the phrase they call clean money campaign? I don't like the phrase clean money, but the point is to take money out of the political process and have a strategy where we don't have to go through every nickel and dime, play all these games, people go and bundle money and all this other stuff because politicians need money to get their messages out. Special interests do dominate the political process on every level of government. What's your take on that relationship of money and politics and the public service issue?
Well, that's a big question, but let me just try to give you a succinct answer. I think that one of the primary goals and missions of the Commission is to ensure that there is transparency and integrity in the political process. There will always be, because of the First Amendment and the guarantees of the Constitution, a certain mixing of politics and money, because money is often associated with expression, and that's protected under the Constitution for individuals. That said, I do think it is an important public policy goal to de-link and decouple the influence of money in politics and to try to create public policy that encourages the transparency and the elimination of the influence of money in politics, so that our elected officials can be concerned, as they should be properly, with the public interest and not with having to constantly be fundraising and be soliciting special interests. So to me, at the most fundamental level, clean money means an effort to promulgate policies that promote good government by decoupling and delinking the influence of money in politics. I know that the Commission has been working on a publicly funded campaign finance proposal. I will tell you that I have not yet formed a view one way or the other as to the current proposal as it's been promoted. But I do think the objective and the goal of a fully publicly funded campaign finance regime is laudable and should be pursued, and I, in principle, support the goal. I think it's, as they say, the devil's in the details, and there are important policy challenges that will inevitably arise. How do you make it robust enough to entice enough people? How do you ensure that it is inclusive and participatory, so that individuals individuals who are legitimately interested in pursuing public life have an opportunity to do so, and it's not just a system that benefits those with existing name recognition, for example. But I think there are some challenges, but I think that it's an important policy goal that the Commission has been working hard on. I know this body will be giving considerable attention to, and it's one I look forward to jumping into and pursuing with great vigor.
I look forward to that great vigor because, you know, Melviny and Myers and Lathan and Watkins and all these other big law firms contribute substantially to our coffers. And then they have issues one way or the other and this and that and so on and so forth. And so do the developers at our local level. The day would come that I'd like to see where all of that money doesn't come in anymore, but the people pay for it in their taxes and know fair well that there's no influence other than the fairness of an issue that goes forward with it. Perception does become reality, and people have a cynical view of the political process. So I'd love to see you come up with some thoughts of how we can curb that impact and truly give the people that sense of transparency that you just said. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Council Member. I share your aspirations, that's for sure, and I hope we can work together on that.
Okay, thank you.
All right, the matter is now before us. On the confirmation, open the rolls, close, tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
Congratulations, 12 ayes. You're confirmed. Thank you. Madam Clerk, next item I think will be number 3, another confirmation.
Yes, confirmation of Mr. Salzman to the Board of Police Commissioners.
Mr. Salzman?
Public safety report has been submitted.
Mr. Weiss.
President, another great appointment, colleagues. When Dean Salzman was appointed to the Ethics Commission, it was a terrific move by the mayor. You were the mayor's appointee, I believe, to the Ethics Commission. And so at some point soon, we'll look forward to the mayor's appointment to replace the dean. But he is an excellent selection for the Police Commission. He has the academic background, both personally and professionally, over the past several decades. A great deal of experience in local government. He used to work for County Supervisor Edelman, so he knows the ins and outs of local government. But he is just altogether a tried and true, very careful, very deliberate and deliberative person who there is literally no agenda you can attach to Dean Salzman other than a dogged desire to get at the truth and, frankly, to resolve issues. He's not someone who, even a lot of people think lawyers like conflict, and sometimes we do, but he has been very much in a conflict resolution mode throughout most of his career. I really look forward to working with you over the next 5 years, and want to give you a chance to say a few words in your defense before we vote for you.
Thank you, Council Member. I appreciate the comments and I appreciate your support and guidance, both when I came before you before for the Ethics Commission and now, and I know I will be speaking to you on a number of issues, and appreciate that. I do want to thank the mayor for this nomination and opportunity, and in addition to Councilmember Weiss, I want to thank Council Members Parks and Zine for the helpful comments and questions, issues that they raised at the committee hearing earlier this week. I also want to thank my colleagues at USC who are making it possible for me to be able to contribute this time if I am confirmed. And finally, I want to thank my partner of over 28 years, Ed Pierce, who is with me here today and who is also very supportive of this, and I know this service will have some effect on him as well. I'm honored. I think it's a privilege to be nominated to support the men and women of the LAPD who serve and protect us on a daily basis in what are very difficult situations. I have a few goals coming in for what I think of as the proper independent civilian oversight that the Board of Police Commissioners provides for the police department, to reduce crime, to make the city safer, to expand and further diversify the police force. I do think that one of the ways to avoid future problems is to have a police force that is not only large enough, but that is also fully part of the diverse communities of Los Angeles that it serves. I think, in addition, it's important that we continue to make progress to improve the quality of the service provided by the LAPD. A point made in the Police Commission meeting yesterday by Commissioner John Mack, that the responsibility of the police department is to protect everyone in all of the diverse communities that make up Los Angeles, and to do that, to protect everyone while respecting their rights. And he pointed out, and I agree, that to do that requires transparency, openness, accountability, that it will take a sustained and consistent commitment and effort, and that it relies on positive, ongoing relationships with community organizations and leaders, and finally, that the department and the men and women of the department need the adequate resources and equipment to do their jobs. Those are the goals that I have, to try to play whatever role I can to help bring that about, to support the department. I want to thank you for your time and comments this morning, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Dean. We have Mr. Garcetti up next, followed by Mr. Rosendahl, Mr. Weiser.
We may be in danger of losing a quorum a little bit later because of a medical emergency, nothing terrible that one of the members had to, so I'll be very quick just to say that I'm rising to support you. And I'm very impressed with the work you did at the Ethics Commission, and ask you one very quick question. In light of the May 1st incidents and the report that's come out in the meantime, are you pleased with the direction the department is heading in terms of accountability there, but also in terms of changing policy long-term and dealing with public assemblies and ensuring that we have the sort of training that we need? If not, what else do you believe we need to be doing?
I appreciate the question. It's obviously very important and a significant issue. I have read the public materials that have come out so far, the department's response, and also so I can speak to that. I obviously believe that there's plenty more for me to learn about it. I do think initially that I am pleased with the response and the direction of the department. I think the report was unusually candid and clear, identified a series of specific issues and also specific changes that needed to be made to avoid these kinds of problems in the future. And I was very encouraged by that. That's the extent of what I know about it, and my guess is that there is more to it than that, and that as I get into it more, there may well be other things in addition. But overall, I'm quite pleased with the response, which struck me as having taken the problem very seriously, having analyzed it and being quite self-critical, and also being able to come up with practical suggestions about how to avoid it in the future. So I'm quite encouraged by it.
All right, Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. Good morning.
Morning.
And congratulations for stepping up.
Thank you.
Doing my own research in the gay community about you, you're quite a leader. You got a great reputation.
Thank you.
And everybody I know within the community is thrilled that you have been put on this commission. And so I must say, from an openly gay guy standpoint, I'm thrilled.
I appreciate
it. And I'm very happy that our mayor made such a wise selection. Because we as gays and lesbians and blah, 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 have problems with the police department. There are problems in the police department. I'm wondering, as I go through my closed session in the budget and finance, and I deal with issues that sometimes I see for the first time, and I do as best I can to ask the questions. I would like to see a procedure develop where any gay or lesbian, bisexual, transgender settlement issue has a chance to be vetted, or at least have your input, or somehow have a relationship. I don't know how we do this with the laws being what they are in the situation. So theoretically, I can get some input from you before I have to make a decision on something that I think is critical for our community. So I challenge you to figure out with the city departments how we can have a relationship that has some workability that allows that kind of input. And I'd like to get your sense of that procedure, if you have any at this point.
Okay. Well, I don't have a lot of, I don't have familiarity with the specifics of the procedures at this point. I do appreciate the impetus for your concern, and I think I share it. That if there are issues raised by citizens or officers that raise issues about their treatment as lesbians, gay men, transgender individuals, bisexual, that we take those seriously, and that we bring to bear what we know about those issues and how people are treated. It's one thing. And this is something John Mack said in the Police Commission again yesterday as well. It's one thing for the department to have policies which state that we do not discriminate. It's another for those policies to be enforced completely from top to bottom in the department.
Could you hold my time up there, please?
And I think it's important that we do that. You certainly have my commitment, if I'm confirmed as a member of the Commission, to pay attention to that and do whatever I can to work toward what you're suggesting within whatever guidelines the city attorney says we've got to follow.
And I look forward to that.
Thank you.
The training that a cadet goes through, will you take a look at the module that has to do with these issues?
Absolutely. I think it's very important that the training that officers in the department have include these kinds of issues to make sure that they understand what the policies are, and also, to the extent any of them have questions about the various communities that they're working with, that they get those questions answered so they understand the people that they're dealing with.
And we also would like to see the opportunity for a refresher course for officers over a period of so many years. They get a refresher course. What do you think of that?
This is new to me, so I don't know what the impact of that would be, but as a general suggestion, seems like a good idea to me. As a lawyer, I have continuing legal education requirements. I think that's a good idea. My sense then as a concept is it would be a good idea for law enforcement officers, but I just don't know a lot of specifics.
And I'd like to also look into the Vice Squad and some of the potential sting operations that have caused problems in our community in the past, and give me a sense of assurance that there aren't those issues continuing.
I will try to do that.
Thank you for stepping up to the plate.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations. And your partner, could he stand up so we can see him on the camera?
All right. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for being his partner and dynamic duo, and for supporting him in this. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Mr. Weezer, our final speaker.
Mr. President, I think the question has been asked, but I wanted to get a better sense from you on the May 1st incident and the response that the department has given. What's your sense of that again, please? Can you hold
my sense of the response so far is that I am encouraged, and I think that the response is positive. And by that I mean that I believe, from what I've read, that the department is taking the problems very seriously, has done the initial investigation necessary to identify the basic structural problems, and has begun the process of recommending the policy changes and command and control changes that would be necessary to avoid the problems in the future. My understanding is that then there's also a series of there's a process going forward with respect to the actions of individual officers on that day, about which I'm not familiar because I'm not on the commission. I haven't been involved yet. My understanding from that is the department takes those very seriously and will. I'm encouraged by that. I think I have yet to see those, so it's hard to know where that will come out. But when I read the report initially, I didn't know what to expect. One possibility would have been a report that said, this wasn't our fault, or the problems came from outside. And my reading of the report was that it was seriously introspective, seriously got at the heart of a series of issues within the department, training issues for the officers, command and control issues on that day, and crowd control issues that warrant serious response from the department. And my sense is that that's in process. It's not completed yet, but I'm encouraged by what I've seen.
Yeah, and I think for myself as well, I'm encouraged from what I've seen because we weren't defensive at all. We recognize there are problems. There are some policies and procedures that have to be changed. I don't think we could prejudge on the outcome of the individual actions that were taken. That would take its course and its due process. But at the same time, I think we're on the right track to certainly correct some wrongs that happened. And I think what we saw that day is very unfortunate, unacceptable, and I hope the Commission continues to focus on this, that just because it's not in the limelight in the media, that it only pops up when we get a new report. I hope that the Commission will continue to focus on this with a laser beam, because if we have another incident like that, it continues to lessen the credibility of the good work our department has been doing. So I take it, that's kind of what the Commission has been doing, and I hope they continue on that track as well. My other question is, how do you think the department is doing on diversity? And any plans, any thoughts on what the Commission can do if we need to do something?
Sure. And I actually appreciate the comments, Council Member, and I think that the two are related. That is, I think part of the response to what happened on May 1st is to continue to diversify the workforce in the department. That is, I think part of the issue that faces the LAPD, and it's a hard issue, is having a workforce which is representative of the diversity of the communities that the department serves, and making sure that the members of the department understand those communities and can communicate with them effectively. And so I think part of the response to May 1st is the continued effort on diversity in the recruitment effort and in the force. How's the department doing? It seems to me, again, I'm new to this, but it seems to me that the department's making progress, but there's much more progress to be made. And when I spoke to the mayor and the mayor's staff about this possible nomination, one of the points I made was that I think my experience at USC may be of some help here. I'm not suggesting that the LAPD and my situation are the same, but I've been working at USC in my current role for over 20 years. And one of my primary responsibilities as administrator in the law school has been to diversify the student body and diversify the professional staff in the law school. And I'm pleased to say I've had good success at that we are viewed as a model among law schools for both the diversity of our student body and our staff. That is not something that happened overnight. The most significant progress I made in that effort happened after 10 years. It was 10 years of consistent effort, leadership from the dean of the law school, from others in the university, my approaching that as a day-to-day problem, something that required my attention, the attention of my staff and others who I could recruit into the process on a daily basis. And I view that as the same problem, but much harder with the LAPD, that diversifying the police force is a very significant problem, perhaps the most significant facing the department. And the only solution to that, it seems to me, is leadership that recognizes that, and I believe Chief Bratton and his command staff do, and then following that up with day after day after day, and eventually year after year of attention to that. It's not a situation that will get solved and will move on. It's a problem that we will be fighting as we go forward, and we will, I think, make progress. and eventually maybe we will reach some of the goals that we have. But I view it as a very long, very difficult process. And for me on the Commission, one of the most important, if not the most important issue where each time we meet, I will want to know what's happening, what progress have we made, if we're not making progress, why not, how do we get from where we are today to where we need to be a year from now and 10 years from now. And just as it is in recruiting in a law school, it's a pipeline problem. Yeah. In the law school setting, the biggest problem is there are not enough African American males graduated from college. If you don't graduate from college, you can't go to law school. How does that happen? Where are these people falling out of the pipeline? And I think in the recruitment situation for the LAPD, it's very much the same. That is, where do we start with young people who may want to be interested, who are interested in law enforcement, who we can encourage into law enforcement? How do we get them into the pipeline? How do we encourage them to stay in that pipeline? And how do we get them to the point where they do eventually then end up at the academy and on the police force?
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Saltzman, and I appreciate your thoughts on that. I think you have the right approach on it, and you're one of the first nominees that I've heard thank their work or thank their institution where they work to give them the time to allow them to do this, and particularly for the Police Commission, knowing the long hours that await you. I congratulate you and thank you, and we also thank USC for allowing you to do the work you do here as well. I won't do this because, as someone in the back is doing, because they beat my Cal Bears a few weeks ago, but congratulations.
Thank you, Council Member, and I appreciate the comment about USC. It's clear I could not do this if I did not have the full support of my colleagues. So.
Thank you.
Janice Hahn.
Thank you very much. Again, well, thank you for agreeing to serve on this very important commission. This, of course, is our Citizens Commission, and under our charter, it is your responsibility and obligation to really be that citizens group, not necessarily having been trained in police work, but being this layer of government that oversees and has oversight and checks and balances for the police department. A couple of things I'd just like to hear your comment on. One of the complaints that I receive all the time, and it's one of my biggest complaints, is the police department's policy for rotating, transferring, moving officers, but particularly command staff. And, many of us still believe in community-based policing, and many of us have heard the police department make pleas to the community. We can't do this by ourselves. We need you. We can't solve these crimes. We need you to step up and help us with our police work. We can't do it all. And yet, when a community becomes engaged with police officers, command staff, so there is a level of trust and understanding about the community, the next thing you know, purely based on police officers' promotional requirements, they are moved and transferred. And, in 6 years, I've had 10 commanding officers in 2 of my divisions. That's a lot. And when I complain, I'm told, well, Janice, you wouldn't want to deny this person their move up the department ladder. You wouldn't want to deny them this promotion. And yet I see the police department as being the only department that puts careers of their employees over, I will say this honestly, public safety. I don't see other departments doing that. I mean, and they talk about officers having to be well-rounded, and they need to experience Watts, and now they need to experience something else. I mean, if we did that on the council level, we'd be criticized. I mean, I don't take some of my council staff from San Pedro and thinking they need to be well-rounded and putting them other places. We put people so that they can know the community, they can know the issues, they can they can begin to solve problems on a long-term basis. I would love for you to respond to that and also to maybe take a good hard look at that. I think it hurts community-based policing. I think it hurts the trust that we work very hard to establish, particularly in certain communities who historically have had bad relations with the LAPD. I think police department needs to find another way to promote people without transferring, and it's, in my opinion, an archaic policy that, again, undermines the community's ability to work with the police officers to solve crimes. And then I'll ask you one more, and then I'll let you respond. I'd love to hear your response. I think the LA Times wrote about it this morning, about the 312 and the 410, and what your feelings are about that policy.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your comments, Councilmember, about the transfer policy. I don't know much more about it than what you just described and what I may have read as a member of the public. I have a few thoughts about it. Obviously, the department is a big, complex agency, and I can see, just from the perspective I have, some positives and some negatives from what you're describing. It does strike me as the kind of issue where, in the end, the answer is balance. That is, that there needs to be the proper balance between promotional opportunities, exposing the command staff to a variety of different communities and opportunities, and the positive relationships with the community that get developed over time and that will, when someone leaves, need to start over. So my answer would be I absolutely appreciate the comment. I commit to take a hard look at it.
Thank you.
And my expectation would be it comes down to a balance of hearing from the department what the positives are of the transfers and what the negatives are to the community, and how do we maximize the good aspects.
I think you make a really good point. I'd like to see them look at, not taking that away totally, but for instance, I had a commanding officer who was there 8 months, put in this whole new strategy for, a gang reduction strategy, and then boom, she was gone. And the next commanding officer, we had to start all over. So maybe balance is the key. Maybe they must stay at a certain place for a number of years. I know originally this came from not wanting to leave command staff for a long period of time, 10 years at one location, because of all that could happen with that kind of familiarity. But this 8 months, 6 months, 1 year of a command staff moving, I think is very important. Because I think command staff is just as much of a community-based policing effort as senior lead officers. That's how I think.
Right.
So I appreciate that.
That makes sense to me. There's certainly a broad span between 8 months and 10 years.
Exactly.
And we ought to be able to reach some agreement on that.
Good, I like that. Okay, so the 312.
Again, the 312, 410, I did read the editorial in the LA Times. I have read public materials about it in the past, so I'm familiar with it. It's an issue that I think all I can say today is that I come to it with an open mind. I assume that it's an issue that will come to the Commission with, in the context of providing a lot of information about the benefits and the negatives, to the extent there are, with the different proposals, and so my commitment would be, I don't have a view on it. My commitment would be to come to it with an open mind and try to figure out what makes the most sense.
Thank you. Well, good luck.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Alarcon.
Congratulations on your nomination.
Thank you.
You live in the city of Los Angeles?
Yes, I do.
The commissioners for the city of Los Angeles are required, with a couple of exceptions, are required to live in Los Angeles. Is that not correct?
I think that's right.
Yeah. Do you think that's a good policy?
I do think that's a good policy.
Why do you think that's a good policy?
Because I think that, I can imagine, I think it's a good policy because I think commissioners are volunteering to help the city serve the citizens of the city. And I think that you're likely to be better equipped to do that as people who live in the city of Los Angeles.
So you think it's a good thing that people who are tasked with the responsibility of serving as officials for the city of Los Angeles should live in Los Angeles?
Well, I think that there are benefits to that, and I think certainly in the volunteer capacity, it makes sense to me. I would be concerned.
What do you think about the fact that 87% of the LAPD does not live in Los Angeles?
Well, that's news to me. So my first answer would be I would want to think about it before I make a lot of comments about it.
That's a good answer.
I guess I have two additional thoughts, and they move in different directions. One is I think it probably would be better if a larger percentage of the employees of the department lived in the city for the reasons I stated. On the other hand, as I've said earlier, I think that one of the most difficult issues facing the department is recruitment. And I assume that if the city were to restrict its employees to being people who live in the city, that would make that recruitment process much more difficult. And I would want to understand that problem much better than I do currently before I reached any kind of conclusion about it.
I think most people's reaction is similar to yours when I tell them that the vast majority of police officers don't live in Los Angeles. They're stunned that, in fact, some jurisdictions throughout the nation, many, have residency requirements. I think we're prohibited in the state of California, but it seems to me that it would be a good thing to focus on to get LAPD to live in Los Angeles. And if you, as a total, 87% sends a horrible message that people in our police department don't even think the city is good enough for them, and yet they're gonna patrol. It also sends some kind of message of elitism, that they can get a better life someplace other than the place that they're required to enforce the law. And I think it's time that we do something about it. And I'd like to see a commission stand up and do something. We can create incentives. We can provide low down payment assistance. We can do some things, but it really has to be a policy that emanates from the police department if we're really going to have positive impact in that area. There are some security issues, and we recognize that, so I don't think it's necessary that 100% of the police force live in Los Angeles, but at 87%, that is sending the wrong message. And I hope that as a commissioner, you will take the time to invest a little bit of your knowledge and ability to inquire and to change this notion that you shouldn't live in the city that you serve, notwithstanding the fact that you're getting a pretty good payroll and benefit out of the city of Los Angeles. Finally, I need to make a final comment. You said the problem was recruitment. Interestingly, that's the old theory that has been espoused by law schools and colleges and police departments throughout the nation, that we just don't have enough qualified recruits. Let me tell you that when I used to write police exams for the city and was responsible for a large measure of the recruitment efforts, and worked in the personnel department, was a background appeals officer, we were being sued by the federal government, and I would ask you to review that case since you are a lawyer. At some point, after getting all the information, Daryl Gates just said, you know what, from now on, every class of LAPD is going to be at least 30% Hispanic. Boom. Went from 15 to 30%, and guess what? Every class after that was. It's not the recruitment. It is a commitment. It is a political will to get it done. So I hope that you don't allow yourself to be roadblocked by old thinking theories of affirmative action. We need to make it happen, and if Daryl Gates can do it, I would hope that our current chief and police commission can make it happen as well.
Councilmember, I appreciate your comments on both issues. I certainly, on the residency issue, will devote myself to that issue and think that the suggestion about incentives or other positive ways to bring that about are the right ways to think about it, and where I think we could probably make some progress. On the diversity and recruitment issue, I think I probably just didn't speak very clearly, because I agree completely with what you said, and I'm sorry if I suggested otherwise. I think the proof of that is in my record at USC. That is, when I talk about recruitment, I don't mean to be talking about it as the excuse for why we haven't done well. I talk about it as one of the tools that we use to solve the problem. But I absolutely agree with you that the changes happen when there's a decision made at the top and the leadership says we're going to do things differently, we are going to identify people, and we're going to bring them into the system. That's in fact what happened with the first dean that I worked for in the law school, Scott Bice, and that is in fact how we changed the makeup of our student body so that 45% of our students are students of color, which is unusual or unique among national law schools. And that happened not because we talked about the recruitment pipeline as an excuse, but because the leadership was there to actually make the changes in just the way you described.
Yeah. Let me just say on that note, when I served in the state senate, I was the chair of the Select Committee on College and University Admissions and Outreach, and I can verify that, in fact, USC has a far greater track record than UCLA colleagues. And I didn't go to either school, but I studied all the colleges of California in that regard, and can tell you that USC is amongst private institutions doing a very good job of recruiting minorities, and not just for the football team, but in the fields of academic achievement as well. And that isn't true consistently with the public institutions, particularly woeful are UCLA and Berkeley. And as a very liberal Democrat, I'm ashamed at that track record.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. The matter is now before us for a vote on this commissioner. Open the roll, close the roll, tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Congratulations. Our newest police commissioner, Dean Saltzman. Congratulations, Dean. The next item will be number 1.
Could we ask the planning department to come up for item number 1?
Madam Clerk, on number 1, please.
Mr. President, there are also cards on this item as well.
Okay.
Colleagues, item number 1 has to do with a liquor license for Long's Drug in a condo mixed-use complex at the corner of Rose Avenue and Main Street. And I'd like for the planning department to give us a quick hit of what the process was and what the story was.
Michael LeGrand, Chief Zone Administrator, Department of City Planning. Before you is a public convenience and necessity application. The zoning administrator held a hearing on this and actually at that time approved the conditional use permit for alcohol. But there's a second step when you have an overconcentration in the area per state law under the Caldera bill, and that item is before you. I believe since the public hearing, your office as well as our department has gotten a lot more information on this application, and the community input has gotten more involved since the time the application was heard.
Great, and I certainly appreciate that opening comment. If we could let the public hearing happen, and then I'd like to talk about the conditions to change this from accepting it to denying it.
Thank you. We have 3 cards on this item. First we'll have Tom McCarty for him, and then after that will be George Ramsden.
Good morning, Mr. President. Tom McCarty. I am the representative for Long's Drug, which we did submit our application, which was approved without any appeals by the zoning administrator's office. We then submitted our application, which is what is before you today. Unbeknownst to us, there are several neighbors in the complex where this project is located that have raised concerns. We met with them on several different occasions. We're unsuccessful in resolving their concerns, and they have requested that the zoning administrator, that the city council deny the application. I would like to introduce George Ramsden, the representative of Long's Drug, if that's acceptable.
Hello, my name is George Ramstead. I'm an employee of Long's Drugs. Good morning, council members. I'd like to first point out that one of the first finding in the CUP was, and I quote, "The proposed location will be desirable to public convenience." So if you tell us now that public convenience will not be served, you will be contradicting the zoning administrator. Also, we met before the Venice Neighborhood Council. They voted to recommend approval of Long's. The Homeowners Association of the condominium development has not opposed our application. The CC&Rs for the condominiums allow for the sale of alcohol. This is very, very, very precise, and it goes like this. A very small group of people are having an unduly large influence on this decision. Thank you very much.
And last speaker, Tom Rocha.
This is
Tom Rocha.
Tom. Sorry, go ahead.
Is it Rochek or Rosek?
Rochek.
Rochek.
Yeah, thank you.
So.
First of all, I want to say thank you for letting us speak, letting me speak on behalf of Long's, and especially Mr. Rosendahl for all the work that he's done trying to get the two parties together. We're struggling in this store to make a profit and be productive. I have 26 stores ranging from Rancho Bernardo to Venice, and in those 26 stores, I sell alcohol in all stores but one. The Venice store is the only store that I don't sell alcohol. It's very typical as a core category of Long's to sell alcohol. Unfortunately, and whether this is solely due to not selling alcohol or not, my least productive, my least profitable store that I have is the Venice store. And the only thing that I can see that doesn't align this store with making a profit is the fact that we do not represent all of our core categories there. We're not a liquor store, we're a drug store. Our primary business is pharmacy and health and wellness, but we also focus very heavily on convenience. And without being able to offer the full selection of goods in our store, we're put at a disadvantage. I truly believe that the people that speak for the entire community of the Venice area has supported us. There is 50 people that came into our store that signed a petition. We also have another 150 people that we solicited petitions from in the neighborhood. I truly believe that if we don't do something drastic with this store and get it on the right path, that we risk having to shut this store down. So obviously that's not what I'm all about, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Very briefly, Mr. President, I just wanted to add one thing. The Los Angeles Police Department has issued conditions which were approved by the Neighborhood Council which severely restrict the sale of alcohol. That the intent of this drugstore is to sell high-end as opposed to contributing to any public safety issues. Thank you very much.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to put in a motion to deny Long's Drug Store from having this liquor license, and I'd like our city attorney to assist me on this, and these are my speaking points to add to the record. There is no convenience or necessity need in the neighborhood. There's a substantial amount of stores where one can purchase alcohol. The sale of alcohol is incidental to the sale of general merchandise and pharmacy items, and this is not a necessity. There are a number of sensitive uses, such as schools close to the proximity to the drugstore. There are 2 liquor stores within a mile of the drugstore, one of which has been an ongoing nuisance. The Neighborhood Council provided testimony that as many as 34 liquor outlets were identified within 1 mile of the site. To allow another liquor outlet would exasperate current nuisance activities, public drunkenness, urination, loitering near the site. This is a moderate to high crime rate area. There are 88 residential dwelling units above the site, and I might say that the vast majority, 95%, are against this, and the neighborhood businesses connected to the building are also against it. And since there is no need, I make this motion to deny this liquor license.
Is there a second?
Yes, Mr. Reyes seconds. Okay. Anybody else wishing to be heard on this item? Seeing none, we have that motion before us. A positive vote is to deny. Negative vote is to do the opposite. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
12 ayes.
That is denied.
Thank you, colleagues.
Thank you. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, is item number 2. Committee report has been submitted and distributed, and public hearing has been held in committee.
Okay. I'd like to recognize Mr. Reyes on item number 2, our plum chair.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to have the staff come forward on item number 2, please.
Just do it like yesterday.
Could you please provide the council an overview of what this case is about and the action taken by planning, land use committee?
Certainly. Maya Zaitsevsky, Planning. This was a appeal of the City Planning Commission's approval of a 78-unit condominium. The 3 points of appeal were that the appellant felt that the street wasn't being adequately widened. It's on Magnolia Boulevard. He felt that the traffic study was not done properly, and that more tenant mitigation conditions needed to be added to the letter of decision. In particular, that he wanted the people who used to live there get the current tenant relocation assistance that's under the new ordinance. However, they were relocated prior to, or evicted prior to the new ordinance going into effect. So yesterday at Plum, we discussed the widening.
Can I just ask you to pause there for a second? They were evicted before the new law came into effect.
Correct.
What was the difference between the new law and the law that reflects our current action?
Well, there's what's at issue here is the amount of money being paid, and it essentially doubled depending on your if you are a qualified tenant, if you are disabled, if you've been there, if you have children, that kind of thing. But they would like to have more money than they currently are allowed to get under the law, and our recommendation was that the City Council needed to follow the law that existed at the time when they were properly evicted.
Okay, so I want to make sure that my colleagues understand the timing issue on why there is that discrepancy. Please proceed.
Like I was saying, the other 2 issues were widening on Magnolia Boulevard, and I think there was just a misunderstanding on the appellant's part about how wide of the widening would be, and it's 5 feet, consistent with the project going in next door on Magnolia Boulevard. And this was the recommendation of both Bureau of Engineering and Department of Transportation. And the traffic study was properly, they followed the proper procedure. They did traffic counts over the course of 2 days, and it was an extensive traffic study that most projects don't have to go through, and that was a cumulative impact analysis of the 3 projects that were being built in the area at the same time.
Okay. Anything else to add?
No.
So, colleagues, Councilor Gould is not here today, but I did receive through the committee process her support for the conditions and the recommendations that we heard from the staff in yesterday's committee. The committee voted to support the recommendations, but there was also a rather difficult situation that occurred in this process. But before I go to that, Council President, we should open a public hearing? Are there any cards on this?
We had a public hearing. It will require a motion to reopen. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. To avoid any confusion on the agenda, I was informed by the clerk that it initially was a placeholder. That's why it was under the items for which a public hearing has not been held, but it has been held. There's 6. So pursuant to our rules, it will require a motion to reopen.
Okay, so is there a motion to open up the public hearing? I'd like to give them 1 minute each.
Okay.
Since we already had the public hearing.
There's a motion from Mr. Reyes. Is there any objection? Seeing none, we will reopen a minute each for those 6 speakers. If you do have anything of a reported nature, we are happy to take that under submission, we can listen to it privately as well, but for precedent's sake, we've had this come before us before, and we can't listen to you playing a recorded item on the microphone, but we would be happy to listen to that if you have that or a copy of it, as to ensure that you keep, obviously, the original. So with that, there's no objection. Noel Weiss will be our first speaker.
All right, well, in 1 minute, I just want to basically say, number one, you people are judges. I think we're entitled to have everybody in their seat listening. If you're in court, the judge doesn't watch it on TV, the judge doesn't talk, the judge listens. For the record, that's not here. I think that's a denial of due process. Going on, number two.
We'll hold your time. Mr. City Attorney?
This is a fair hearing matter now that the hearing has been reopened, requiring the heightened attention to the public speaker comments.
So, Ms. Perry, Mr. Parks, if we could have as many folks, please, in their chairs right now. We'll start your time over again, Mr. Weiss.
I just want to point out that Councilor Rosendahl is sitting in the vacant seat of Councilman Gruhl.
Right.
So he is here. And I do know Councilman Perry is also in the room.
Okay, fair enough.
And she's right next to him.
We have 10 members in their seats. Go ahead, Mr.
I
Weiss.
appreciate that. The goal, judges, is to get the right result for the right reason in the right way. And what we have here is a circumstance where we're talking about volunteered imposed conditions. Specifically, there are two of them. Number one, the tenant relocation conditions, the number of dollars. Number two, there is a condition that we have in here that was volunteered to allow for 3% to 5% discount to teachers, policemen, and firemen. Now, there is no specific ordinance that directs that result. However, the developer volunteered it. It's in the conditions. The city attorney never said you can't do it. The planning department said you never can do it, and in fact it's in there and it's going to be enforced. Now the second one is the tenant issues. It's the same argument. Basically what we're talking about is, correct, these tenants were noticed before April 11th. However, we're talking an extra 1,000 for roughly 17 people. Okay, so now we're at 20,000. What we're asking for in this appeal is another 20,000. And the reason for that, essentially, is because the developer offered Chuck Tenen. We contend, the developer disputes it. Can I just finish this one thought very briefly?
Finish that
and I'll
sentence.
take it off somebody's time, very briefly.
You can't take it off somebody
Okay.
else's. Finish the sentence, though. Go ahead. Finish the sentence.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Basically, it's a disputed fact, but Chuck Tenen was offered to give up his appeal, $20,000. Chuck Tenen is basically saying, you know what, as a matter of policy, give it to those other tenants. Thank you very much.
Appreciate it. Sandy Hubbard is our next speaker. After that will be Marcel Duncan.
Good morning. My name is Sandy Hubbard. I live at 11911 Magnolia Boulevard, Unit 10, right adjacent to the project at hand. What makes this particular project different than all of the other projects that have been approved to be built in that one little square block is that its only ingress and egress is on Magnolia Boulevard. We do not believe the traffic studies have been sufficient, requesting that there is a traffic light installed on Radford and Magnolia that would be just prior to the project. That way it would allow the safe ingress and egress of the people who live at the facility that is now being designed. I would also call them to your attention, I'm sure you saw that this morning in the newspaper, we had an article about a possibility of an action taken by city staff that might have been inappropriate. And in that particular case, we feel that it might be necessary for you to request that this start over again so that the appropriate process and due process be served to the community without any appearance of impropriety. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Marcel Duncan is next, then Chuck Tenen. Good morning.
Good afternoon. My name is Marcel Duncan. I reside at 13727 Oxnard Street in the city of Van Nuys. You know, I was the person that Jack Chang put his message on my machine. It did not include my name nor my telephone number. All I said was leave a message and I'll call you back. So he thought it was Gary. And what he had said on the opening, and I know you're going to play the tape, but I want everybody here to know what he said. He said, I'm calling from the planning department and for my superiors, Maya Zazinski and Michael LeGrand, in reference to the PO. We cannot reject it, and I am very sorry. And in the end, he said, but no matter what, Gary, you will win your appeal. Well, something smells fishy in Denmark to me, doesn't it to you? You're going to take that and throw it out and make like nothing existed? And I understand Michael LeGrand had to say, naughty, naughty Michael Chan, this will never happen again. We're going to discipline him. And I respect him for that, and he apologized to me, but that's not enough. This has got to go back to the council.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Chuck Tenen is our next speaker. After that will be Gary Safranoff.
City Council, Chuck Tenen. For the record, the corrected record at Plum, Gary Sheffel undermined my integrity and credibility by twisting words around, and I didn't get an opportunity to respond. It's unfair. He was the one, you could hear it on the tape, that was calling me about the deal to give me $1,000 in cash if I didn't appeal it, or Marcy didn't, and about $20,000 off of his condos. Ed Reyes could not hear the tape, unfortunately, but Jack Chang admitted on this tape, the city planner there, that the council office was in his pocket. You can listen to that tape, and I'd like to know my credibility and my integrity is honorable. And the issue that was not resolved, no matter what they say there, that street issue, they still did not get it right. And you know what? Not properly done, and it's a bad decision, and a lot of people in that community are going to get hurt.
Thank you. Gary Safranoff is our next speaker. After that is Laura Sprague.
Gary Safranoff, I'm the track engineer representing Gary Schaffel. The first item I wanted to mention is about this widening. In fact, when looked at closely, the conditions for dedication and widening are correct. Engineering indicated that yesterday, and they matched the project right adjacent to this site. So that isn't a problem looked into. The second item was about the accumulation of traffic, and I think you heard earlier that the traffic study, in fact, was done properly, and because of it, mitigation measures were imposed upon this project that would not normally be imposed. The third item was the tenant relocation. The developer, in fact, had given the tenant notices almost a year before the new ordinance went into effect. He did it in May, and in effect, a year later, in April, it went into effect. They received the proper amount both for special and regular tenants. And then through a request through the council office, he also was willing then to add about another $20,000 of relocation assistance for those people who were still in the project after the 17th. After the new approval.
Thank you. Laura Sprague. And then Jim McQuiston will follow that.
Thank you for having me. I just want to say that you will win the appeal no matter what. Yet traffic has not been probably justified. I'm not sure what to say. So. I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate your testimony. Jim McQuiston is our final speaker.
Jim McQuiston, a quick comment. Bradley versus Richmond School Board, Supreme Court, 416 U.S., I can't remember the page number. It says that if a new law is enacted while an issue is still in progress, it applies to that issue even though the old law was in effect when the issue was started. So these people do have access to the new ordinance according to the Supreme Court already. I had to invoke that in one of my cases on the Equal Access to Justice Act against the federal government itself. And you know it's very difficult to win there, and we won there and set the precedent for the country. That is an old law that came back to Revolutionary War times on the schooner, I believe it was schooner Peggy. John Marshall gave the decision, and that's what Bradley cited in the Supreme Court.
Thank you, Mr. McQuiston. That ends our public reopen comment period, and I'll go back to Mr. Reyes, our chairman of Plum.
Thank you, Council President. I'd like to ask the city attorney to come to the table, please. In committee, I wanted some clarity as to what the actions of this staff person means to the process, and given his role at that time, does that have any bearing as to our deliberation in committee. I wanted to make sure that was on the record. I want my colleagues to understand the dynamics of this process and how this individual, I believe, grossly erred in their judgment on how they spoke to the party that's involved in this case. But I wanted, for the sake of the record, for the city attorney to describe the significance of that statement within the process as we go through our deliberation.
Jerry Burge, City Attorney's Office. In our view, the position of that planner was a personal opinion. It was made after the City Planning Commission had acted and after the council person for the district had clearly declared their position on the matter, and it was restating those matters that were already in the public record. It is at this point in time, in our view, a personnel matter. The City Council, of course, has to make the appropriate findings in order to grant a vesting tentative tract map, in order to grant or deny this appeal.
So we have a staff person who is using poor choice of words and how they're describing what was going on at that moment. I believe overstepped their bounds, because now, at that time, was making reference to a decision that had yet to be made by the committee, but repeated what the Planning Commission had already positioned itself to say, as well as the council office, who made its position known at commission. So I just want to make sure it's clear where in the process this individual made that statement. This is not business as usual, as was claimed in the newspaper. We do have integrity in our process, and the person, I believe, that made this gross error is being worked with to understand their role. But Mr. LeGrand, can you please speak to this?
Yes.
And I personally want to give my deepest apologies to those participating in this process, because it does not bode well for anyone in this city when you have that type of language being used in the process. So, Michael, please.
Michael LeGrand, Chief Zone Administrator, Department of City Planning. Council members, this is an extremely unfortunate situation. We're taking this very serious. On behalf of the Planning Department, I'd like to apologize to Ms. Duncan and Mr. Tenen, as well as to Councilwoman Gruhl. Our staff used lack of judgment in leaving that message. It's similar to what the city attorney said. This is a personnel item that we are working on, but also in a broader sense, we're using it as a training tool for all of our staff to understand the importance of the proper protocol from working with applicants, the community, council offices. Our staff should never presume to speak for the council office. The council office speaks for themselves. They have staff that can do that for the members of the council office. We do not state the position of the council office. We need to stick to the facts of the case. So we are taking this very serious, and we'll discuss this with all the staff in the department about the proper protocol and conduct that we demand from our employees.
The essence of the decision yesterday was based on the fact that you have two properties side to side. Engineering is requiring that the street windings stay uniform because of the traffic and public safety reasons. The council office agrees with that and is following the recommendation as been stated in the report. The notion of how much is given for relocation was based on a law that was in the books when the application was submitted to the department. Unfortunately, as it started to be paid out, I believe, the new law kicked in, which allowed for a difference of how much was being provided for relocation. So therein lies the tension of what was being put forth by law versus what was being received at that point in time when it was being implemented. So therein lies the reason for that discrepancy in the difference of relocation costs. We felt that it was important to follow the lead of the council office, knowing that they understand the district, they understand the dynamics of that street, and they wanted that alignment to be where it is, given the new development as it's being proposed. And that's the reason why we supported this. Both Councilmember Weiss and I voted to support this recommendation. But it gives us, I believe, a black eye when you have that kind of conduct, when you have a staff person making a statement before the committee even looks at the case and makes its evaluation, and assuming that we were going to take a certain course of action, which is totally inappropriate. So I'm hoping we understand the error of this and we make necessary changes to train our staff as to what their role is in the process as advisors, as entities who recommend to the policymakers.
Thank you
With
very
that,
much.
I ask for you to support the Plum Committee.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Reyes. And I'll next call on myself and switch out here with Ms. Perry for a second.
You're right there.
I thank you very much, Mr. Reyes, for your work on this, and I stepped down because of the unusual circumstances around this, because I do want to drill a little bit deeper and just make sure about this. It is extremely troubling, to say the least, and in my mind does not just reflect a lack of judgment. It reflects something that is, and I know you can't talk to this right now, but potentially unethical, though not necessarily tainting of the project. But I don't know if good judgment would have been calling the right person, but I don't think that's what you were implying. But it is clearly worse than bad judgment. It is the wrong thing for a city employee to be doing, and for somebody who, as it's been explained to me, we are the body here. We are making our judgment, not based on that individual, and I want to make that very clear for the court, for any legal precedents, for anything else, that we're making that decision, talking to the staff of CD2, looking at the project, listening to the public, etc. That's how I'm voting, and I think I speak for my colleagues in saying that's how each one of us individually is voting for this. To be clear, though, were any staff reports that led to the recommendations of the planning department on any of this, was the authority given to the individual who left this message?
The individual, Michael LeGrand, Department of City Planning, the individual who left this message was the initial decision maker as the deputy advisory agency on the tentative track map. Once that item was appealed, it was under the purview of the City Planning Commission, the Citywide Planning Commission, and myself, as well as Maya Zazevsky, also represented the case with the Planning Commission at that hearing. As is commonly done when a case gets appealed, it usually goes up to a higher level manager in the department.
Okay. I know that the council office has put considerable work into this, independent of that as well, which is very important to me when I make my decisions. People refer to it sometimes as a professional courtesy around here. It is more than that to me. It is the judgment of people who are elected by their constituents to try to represent the area as best. They have to make judgment calls. It does not ever please 100% of constituents, but what it does is establishes for me a very important piece of advice, the most critical and important piece of advice. And I think it's fair to represent that the council district here is in support of this, independent of that decision from the planning department based on its own due diligence, correct? Yes. I want to establish that as well for the record. I will, as such, just like to ask one last question to the city attorney. In your opinion, does this in any way affect the decision-making chain of our ability today to independently look at this project? And if we believe that maybe imperfect or perfect, but we make the decision collectively as a body to move forward with this, has this tainted that, or is this an independent policy issue for us to, and a personnel issue for the planning department to consider?
For the record, Jerry Burge, City Attorney's Office. Again, a tentative track map appeal is a de novo appeal before the City Council, and that means the City Council has to independently determine whether or not it can make the findings to grant that map. And in this case, that would be denial of the appeal and granting the map. And so you have to, on a de novo basis, independently make that determination. So I do not think that the facts as stated today would impact that independent determination as long as you have the evidence and the facts to make the findings.
Okay. I appreciate that. I will make that decision de novo. It was troubling, at least, that separate from that de novo decision, we heard about this. This was brought to our attention. I hope that we recognize that this is unacceptable behavior. It's not just something that's good for training in the future, but I know that you are addressing it. It needs to be addressed directly, independently from this decision as well, and I wanted to say that in as strong terms as possible.
Understood.
Thank you.
No further. Oh, Mr. Alarcon.
I'm concerned with that last comment. Essentially, I take it that since we cannot rely on planning department's information, that it is upon, we take it individually as our responsibility to do the due diligence necessary to make a decision.
Again, Jerry Burge, it's just that our code talks about on an appeal, the city council may, and I'm sorry I don't have the language in front of me, but I believe it says something like affirm, deny the appeal. And so what that means is that it comes before the city council again, and the city council can rely on the planning department recommendation, the city planning commission recommendation. After reviewing that recommendation and the report and listening to the testimony and the evidence, and then you would decide on your own, what we call de novo, whether or not the evidence in the record supports your determination to either grant or deny a vesting tentative tract.
So
that's the way all of these are done,
Okay,
Council.
so what you're saying is that, notwithstanding the fact that this is the first time I've ever heard of this case, that the substance of this meeting is sufficient for me to make a decision, or that's a determination I have to make for myself?
You rely on the Plum Committee, and the Plum Committee is what has been delegated by the council to act on these matters and make a recommendation to you, propose findings, show you the evidence. You, I believe, review those reports by Plum and those recommendations, and then would, generally speaking, but not necessarily, but generally speaking, vote to either go along with the Plum report, or in some cases, obviously, not go along with the Plum report.
But we have to have a confidence level that that we did our own personal due diligence to make that judgment.
Again,
including whether or not we rely on the committee.
You need to be familiar with the matter, Councilman.
Okay. Well, members, this is the first time I've heard of this case. I am not going to put myself in jeopardy and vote on something that I don't know enough about. I respect the chair, and I think he knows that I'm not disagreeing with him. I'm just saying that given the legal matters, legal recommendations.
Councilman, let me get the code for you and read it to you.
Would it be helpful?
I don't need the code. I've already made my decision that I don't want to participate in this. The fact is that I do not have sufficient information to meet the standard in my own determination that it has been described by the city attorney. That's no slight on the respect I have for the committee chair and the committee. It's no slight on the council district. It's merely a statement that as an individual council member having to make this decision, I do not feel that I am in a position to make that decision because I have not had the opportunity to do the due diligence to make such a decision, and therefore I'm out of here. I'm out of here.
Staff is prepared to make the findings of any of the other council members. We've made 8 findings on the record that were upheld by the City Planning Commission and the Plum Committee. If you'd like to have us repeat those 8 findings for you, or findings of fact, we're prepared to present those.
President,
yes.
Can we continue this item? Is there any timing issues involved?
I just want to be clear that a recusal by any council members is essentially a yes vote because the time is tomorrow. If we take no action, then it goes forward anyway. So as much as folks would like to have more time and more information, the due date on this is the 21st. So anybody leaving the room, anybody, asking for a continuation is essentially voting yes.
If I could, Councilman, simply read you what the code says, 17.06. A4 of the Los Angeles Municipal Code, the City Council may sustain, modify, reject, or overrule any recommendations or rulings of the Appeal Board, here that's, of course, the City Planning Commission, and shall make findings consistent with the provisions of this article and the Subdivision Map Act. That, of course, is what has been put before you from the Plum Committee, based on the City Planning Commission, based on the Advisory Agency, based on the Planning Department.
Mr. Rosendahl.
Well, I tell you, I'm really conflicted and confused and ignorant. I mean, I really must tell you, this is a first new day for me on this issue. We heard earlier, and I'd like somebody to answer this from one of the public comments about some phone call. And I read it in the newspapers this morning, too. Could somebody explain what that is and what that meant and so on and so forth?
Mike LeGrand, Department of City Planning. As stated earlier, staff has allegedly made a phone call to what they thought was responding to a question of the developer where he'd asked if the appeal could be rejected. We do have the provisions to reject appeals if they're not based off merit and make factual statements as to why they can be appealed. That was discussed with management of the department. We determined that the appeal was valid and needed to be accepted. The staff was attempting to leave a message for the applicant and instead mistakenly called the appellant and left a message that we felt was unprofessional and not factually based in terms of the things that were said in that message that the appellants had brought forward and played. That was difficult to hear, but assuming that everything that was written out from the transcript is accurate, is very alarming on what was said. That happened after the City Planning Commission action, which doesn't really change the fact that an inappropriate behavior was undertaken by staff and lacked poor judgment, but the appeal had already been heard by one body. And so the appeal before you today, the merits of the appeal, the things that were raised in the appeal, the staff has addressed in the appeal staff report before the City Planning Commission as well as before the Plum Committee, and now that item is before you today.
Yeah, but was he kind of suggesting it was a done deal and the process was...
Well, unfortunately,
I don't understand.
The staff, after we have an appeal that goes to the City Planning Commission, we become the staff for the Planning Commission. So if they overturn us or they approve the same action we approve, we carry their item forward. So the staff represents the Planning Commission's appeal. So yes, the staff has allegedly said stuff regarding that it was a done deal, something along those lines, which is very inappropriate and isn't factual at all. As we all know, when an item's appealed, the entire matter's before the appellate body, and many times cases go in directions that many of us wouldn't be able to predict. So we have no business predicting the outcome of a case.
Okay, now we're the policymakers here, and what I'd love to know is exactly what is before us to vote on. Explain it in simple terms.
Before you is a track map appeal and a Plum Committee report recommending denying that appeal. And so you can either affirm that appeal, or if you decide to deny the track map, we would have to make the findings in the State Subdivision Map Act for denial of an appeal that staff feels we cannot make. So our recommendation to you is to adopt the report of the Plum Committee and deny the appeal.
And what is the appeal exactly? What are they saying?
I'll let Ms. Zazewski explain the appeal.
Okay, they had 3 points of the appeal. The first point of the appeal had to do with the widening that was required by the Bureau of Engineering and included as in our letter of decision, which is a 5-foot widening. I'm unsure of whether they think that 5 feet is not wide enough or is wide enough, but at the point of the appeal, they didn't think our widening was wide enough. The second part was that they questioned...
Let me ask you that on the widening. Did we then take a look at what they said about it wasn't wide enough, and did we get back and say, no, it is wide enough? What was this?
Yeah, I mean, this has all been discussed in a staff report to the City Planning Commission, was brought up at the Planning Commission. Bureau of Engineering and Department of Transportation both were part of the decision, and it's, as Mr. Reyes said, it was consistent with the project that is being built at the same time next door.
I see.
So it would be appropriate to continue with the exact same widening
So in other words, you're denying that because it's wide enough from the standpoint of what's happening next door.
Right.
And DOT felt that was adequate.
They did a traffic
What's
study.
the second
They questioned the methodology of the traffic study. They were under the impression that there was only one day they went out and did traffic counts at the site, but there was 2 days, and that's consistent with Department of Transportation's methodology. And then the third point had to do with the relocation assistance and whether they should be allowed to get more money at this point in time, even though they had been properly evicted before the new ordinance went into effect.
How far before the new ordinance went into effect were they evicted?
11 months.
11 months earlier. Was any effort made to see if there could be an appreciation of that from, I mean, I have had issues like this too, where people have gotten together and listened to the tenants' plight and worked it out. Was there any of that?
Well, they met with the council office, and the appellants did, and the applicant, and they offered them, the remaining tenants at the time, there were 17 tenants there, they offered them $1,000 or $2,000, depending on if they were a qualified tenant or not. So they did get additional money above and beyond what the city required at the time they were evicted, but not as much as they would have received had they been evicted after April 11th, 2007.
Mr. President, is it inappropriate for me to ask Mr. Noel Weiss to make a comment, or is that inappropriate?
You can ask him a question from the podium.
Is that okay?
On your time, you can ask him, sure.
Okay. Would you just react to that? Because I'm trying to think it through.
Well, I appreciate it very much, because part of the process is we only have 1 minute and you guys have hours.
I understand.
Okay, and it's
we
not
don't
fair.
have the clock.
Okay, now, in terms of your answer to your question.
Yes, sir.
Specifically, we're talking about an additional sum of money, not the total relocation benefits that you passed in April, an additional $20,000 over and above the $20,000 now, based upon the fact that it's a collective decision on the policy of this council, which you have the authority to do. You are judges. You can say, you know what, give the tenants another $20,000. It's not going to take away the track map. They're going to get their project. Or you can say, no, all I'm looking for is a debate on that issue. Is it fair? Is it right? It's your authority. It's your responsibility. And the city attorney, and it's appropriate, because right now, even with the extra $20,000, and that's the point that I want to make, it's over and above whatever it is that you authorized. And we've got it. I just want another $20,000 more. That's it, period, end of story. You want to give it? Fair enough. Let's have a debate. Let's have a vote. That's it.
Any reaction to that comment?
Jerry Burge, Land Use Division, City Attorney's Office. I respectfully disagree with what Mr. Weiss just said. Our law that we adopted in April did say that it would apply to anyone evicted on or after April 11th, and I do not believe that you have the authority to impose a condition that conflicts with that law.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. President, for letting me ask that question. Thank you.
Mr. Cardenas?
What's frustrating to me right now is to listen to something that is being interpreted as a technical obstacle, but in fact, in my opinion, at least at this point, is more emotional. And that is that a particular staff person left some kind of message rendering their interpretation, and that has everybody, some people, kind of nervous. But what I'd like you to clarify from the city attorney's vantage point, the person who left that message and rendered some kind of opinion on that message of their own, did they have the authority to do that? In other words, in their capacity, were they acting in their responsibility, or were they acting as an individual leaving some message?
Jerry Burge, for the record. I don't know that I can answer that. I don't think it's really probably more for planning to say what their duties are. It does appear that it was a personal opinion. They were saying something before the matter had gone to Plum or to council, so clearly they could not predict something that was going to happen in the future. And other than that, they were giving public information of what the Planning Commission, how they had acted, and what the council member of the district had already stated publicly, and that is simply public information.
Okay. So even with that message having been left on somebody's machine or something like that, In your opinion, does that preclude us from being able, for this body to be able to exercise its responsibility and render its vote or its decision as a body?
In my opinion, it does not affect your ability to independently decide what the code tells you to do, which is to act on the appeal and determine whether or not to sustain, reject, or modify the appeal and make the appropriate findings.
And what was the decision of the Plum Committee that is now before us?
The Plum Committee recommended denial of the appeal and to affirm the decision of the City Planning Commission, which granted the vesting tentative track map, and to adopt the findings recommended by both staff of the Planning Department and the City Planning Commission.
Did that message that that person left, did that affect any of the actual activity that occurred on behalf of the parties involved, the people who were appealing, the tenants, the property owner, etc.?
I'm not sure I understand your question. The Plum Committee, of course, had to make also its own independent recommendation, and again, the phone call occurred before the Plum Committee heard the matter. And so the Plum Committee heard the matter, they listened to the testimony, reviewed the file, listened to the recommendations of staff, and so I do not believe that the evidence shows that the Plum Committee was affected or influenced at all, but acted independently. Whether it influenced or affected the other parties, I can't say.
Was that message left, or was that message left on the recording or something of one of the Plum Committee members' offices or one of their staff members?
No, I believe Mike LeGrand, City Planning, I believe the appellants have had like a sort of an unofficial transcript of what was on the message and had passed that out to some of the council members. And they also played the tape at the Plum Committee and spoke similar to how they spoke today regarding the essence of what they feel is said on that tape before the Plum Committee, and it was fully discussed at the Plum Committee, similar to how we are having that discussion right now with the full council. Does that clarify yours?
Yeah, it does. What I'm trying to get at is, what I'm trying to understand is this particular staff person, did anybody bring any evidence forward that that particular person not only left a message there but was trying to translate that interpretation of their own to the decision makers in this process?
No, they weren't. There was the staff member, no one's ever alleged that the staff member was trying to spread that message to the decision makers in the process in terms of the council office.
And he was taken off the case once the phone call was brought to our attention, so he did not bring the appeal to Plum. I did it, and Mr. LeGrand came with me. I'm his supervisor, and I'm perfectly happy to make the map-back findings if that will give the council some more comfort in the decision. I think the decision was impartial. The City Planning Commission approved it on appeal, and then Plum also is recommending that the track map be approved and the appeal be denied. I'll be perfectly happy to just go over the facts of the track map itself, aside from the phone call, if that would be helpful.
Well, I don't really want to know about the phone call personally. I want to make my decision based on the facts. And it's my understanding that that phone call was not about facts. That phone call seemed to be some kind of opinion of an individual trying to make some kind of, again, an opinion about how they thought the results were going to end up through the process that wasn't even done yet.
You're absolutely correct, Councilman.
I've seen that happen many, many times from people from all over the place. So I really could care less what that person's opinion was about how we're going to act as a committee or as a body or what have you. I'm satisfied with the deliberations of the Plum Committee, and I'm satisfied with the fact that I have the responsibility to read my documents, to have my staff do so, etc. I'm satisfied with what I've done in my office as an elected official who is now charged with pushing the button one way or another. I'm satisfied with that. I really do not give much credence to other people rendering their opinion about how I'm going to act or how my colleagues are going to act. And I haven't heard any of my colleagues here talk about how they were infiltrated by this individual in this individual's opinion. So I'm very satisfied with where we're at today.
Ms. Hahn?
Yeah, I agree. To me, it sounds like you laid out 3 issues for the appeal. Widening of the street, tenant relocation, and
Traffic study.
traffic study. Is there, can we take one of those issues like tenant relocation? Is there a way we can, and we have two different opinions. I'd actually like to get, another opinion on whether or not we as a city council could make the decision to allocate the extra $20,000, that one piece of the appeal, not the other two. Because it's clear that is the policy of this body. That is clear that this is what we believe, and whether or not we're off 11 months, this is certain. They were in the process when we enacted our new policy. We have one attorney out there saying we do have that authority. We have Jerry saying we don't. It's almost like I'd like to hear another opinion by the city attorney on whether or not we actually do have that authority, and what would happen if that was something we decided we wanted to do.
Jerry Burge, first of all, I do represent the city attorney's office and the entire office. But secondly...
we've gotten different opinions from different city attorneys before that.
And that's why I'm making it clear that I do represent the position of the office. But you need, of course, a basis to impose a condition. The policy at the time they were evicted, of course, of the city council was different.
Right.
And if you indeed impose the condition, it's just something that, of course, could be something that could be litigated and possibly wouldn't be. It would be up to the landlord.
Yeah. We were just talking about the $20,000 extra for the relocation. That's certainly...
One of the issues, Councilman Mike LeGrand from the Planning Department, is the majority of the tenants have already been relocated. So in terms of the nexus of relocation, that action has already taken place. So many of the people already reside in a new building. They've already found new shelters. So it's that's one of the concerns, is that this isn't something that's about to happen. It's already happened months ago. So the additional money, I'm not sure if it would provide the benefit of relocating those people.
Maybe we could ask again, Mr. Weiss, what's the thinking on the extra relocation dollars?
The extra thinking is that the legal basis that you would have would be based upon the community.
Right, but where would that money go to? He's saying that some of the tenants have already been relocated. They're already living other places.
Basically, the right, Councilwoman, that you have is based upon the policy that's already in the community plan, that is the law. The nexus that Mr. LeGrand refers to is the fact that we are basically, in that community plan, smoothing out the rough edges, specifically providing for affordable housing opportunities, and this helps that objective.
Would this relocation money go to all
No, it would only go to the 17 tenants who resided in these buildings, these 2 buildings, on April 11th, which was the day that the council took the action that they took. Only those 17. There were, I believe, probably 50, 60 tenants, only those 17. So it basically puts it in a situation where that middle class value and that social policy value, preserving affordable housing, is enhanced, and you have that authority under the specific plan and the community plan, social values and protocol. The same policy, by the way, that reinforces the 3 to 5% discount for teachers, policemen, and firemen. That's not the law either, but that's coming in there, and they'll make findings consistent with the subdivision map back on that as well. You have that authority, I believe.
like I said, I don't know how we would take one piece of the appeal and make a decision on it. Is that something that's under our purview?
Yes, you can modify the action of the Plum Committee and impose a different condition if you have a basis for that condition, if you feel that these remaining tenants, that there is what we call a nexus because they were still there,
Right.
and that was when you
Right.
when
I mean,
you changed the law.
I personally standing here today see that nexus. I see those 17 tenants as actually falling under the council's new policy about relocation. So I would like to move that maybe we offer that $20,000 to those 17 tenants that were living in the building on the day that we enacted our new policy.
Councilwoman, if I may, that may be something you would want to ask the developer if it's something that they would volunteer as a volunteered condition due to the items raised today.
Okay, is the developer?
I don't believe he's here.
Is the developer here?
It's representatives here.
Representative, is that something the developer would voluntarily do?
Gary Safronoff. I'm speaking for Gary Schaffel. Gary Schaffel felt that, just so you know, that the tenants that we're talking about that were there on April 11th were given notice 11 months before that about they just had not moved out yet.
Well, so it's not that easy to move out.
Well, just so then, in addition, because nothing was required that was indicated at the Planning Commission, what happened is that the council office approached Gary Schaffel and said, well, I think, maybe we can can you do something extra for these 17 tenants? You're not required to by what's being told by the city attorney's office. So he agreed to do the additional, he said, okay, I'll do an additional $1,000 for the regular tenants and an additional $2,000 for the special tenants then. And so that was a volunteer condition that he did make at the Planning Commission. And it seemed to satisfy the Planning Commission and the council office. And so all I can tell you is that I think that he felt he made an effort to move in that direction, even though he wasn't required to.
Yeah. Again, we're in an awkward position because the council office is not here. And again, if this was a communication between the developer and the council office and the Planning Commission and everyone was satisfied on that one issue, I would like to see that, yes.
I'd like to suggest, is Councilman Gruhl scheduled for tomorrow?
She is not. Tomorrow's Thanksgiving.
That's right.
Tomorrow's Thanksgiving.
I know it feels like Tuesday, but it's Wednesday already.
It'll be a lonely room.
Yes, it will be. Anybody opposed to a special meeting tomorrow? Just kidding.
Can I get 8 ayes?
Potluck.
The only option was to have it. Do we have? I'm sorry.
Jerry Burge, City Attorney's Office. The matter, of course, can be continued if the applicant agrees to a continuance.
That's what I was going to ask. And the applicant is not here today.
Or the applicant's representative.
Do we have the attorney here? Representative?
He doesn't have.
Yeah, I mean, we would respectfully ask that you maybe would consider letting us continue this, just to see if we could talk about some of these issues.
Ms. Gruhl will be here on Tuesday, our next meeting.
So this would be continued to next Tuesday?
Till Tuesday.
Till Tuesday.
And you're the only one that can agree to this.
Should I can...
Do you have authority to agree to a continuance? I'm sorry. I'm asking if he has authority to agree to a continuance, and if he would then agree to a continuance.
Well, I don't have that authority. I can try to call him right now and see if I can reach him.
Why don't we table this? Let him make the phone call.
Okay.
Be in a session and see where we go with this.
You didn't answer the right way.
Okay, we will hold this on the table, and Madam Clerk, if we can take up the next item in the meantime.
Next item, Mr. President, is item number 7, and that was called special by Councilmember Parks.
Mr. Parks, item 7.
We'd like to continue that to Tuesday. We're working out some language with the city attorney on a substitute ordinance.
Okay, if there's no objection, that will be continued until Tuesday. Item number 7 will be taken up on the 27th. Next item.
Next item is item 11, that was called special by Councilmember Parks, and there is an amending motion that has been distributed to the council members.
Is that sufficient?
Just the amending motion that just clarifies some of the directions on the original motion.
Okay. Please open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
10 ayes.
That is approved. Next item, please.
Next item is item number 12, and that was called special by Councilmember Reyes.
Okay.
Council President,
item 12.
What I'd like to do, if I may, on item 12, continue till Tuesday. I'd like to have the Transportation Committee Chair present.
Okay.
And is also part of the along with Councilmember Hahn and Labange, makers of the motion. So I'd like to continue that for Tuesday.
Okay. Is there any objection to continuing item number 12 until Tuesday? Our transportation chair will be here then as well? Not? So continued. Next item, please.
Next item, Mr. President, item number 24 is one of the closed session items, and it does have a card.
Okay. Mr. Sachs, is this your card? Okay. There's no name on it, but I think I recognize the handwriting, so.
My apologies. Thank you very much. Closed session items. With the budgetary shortfalls that we're cities facing, it would be nice to know what we're spending in regards to outside counsel and versus what the balance is, what we're spending for the council, for the own city council, the own city's legal counsel regarding these closed session cases. And we should be kept abreast of a running total. Thank you.
Thank you for the suggestion.
For the record, number 24 is in-house counsel.
Yeah, that's what he was referring to, I think. Okay. We will continue to keep that on the desk for closed session. Are the last remaining items all closed session, Madam Clerk?
Yes, they are. Do you wish to clear the desk before going into closed session?
Yes, let's go ahead. Are there any announcements at this point, actually, colleagues, and then we'll clear the desk while we're waiting on item number 2. If we do have that resolved, I want to stay here in open session and resolve that first. Any business announcements? Obviously, we will not have council this Friday because of the Thanksgiving holiday. So want to make sure folks know that. And again, as we started the meeting out, there will be the traditional Hollywood Santa Parade on Sunday at 5 p.m. on Hollywood and Sunset Boulevards. We thank the community as well and let people know there will be extra traffic, of course, for the parade. So plan ahead. Any other...
How about adjournment?
Well, let's go ahead and clear the desk first.
Council has motions for posting and referral.
Those are posted and referred.
There are excuses on the desk. Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused Wednesday, November 28th, to leave at 1:30 for city business. That's meet council policy.
Okay, that excuse is granted.
Councilmember Wesson requests to be excused.
That is granted as well. Okay.
Councilmember Cardenas requests to be excused Friday, November 30th for city business. A motion is required.
I will move that. Ms. Perry seconds. Without objection, that excuse is granted.
Councilmember Rosendahl requests to be excused Wednesday, November 28th to leave at 1 p.m. and Friday, the 7th to arrive at 11 a.m. A motion is required for the 7th.
All right. I will move again. Ms. Perry seconds on that, and those excuses are granted.
Councilmember Hahn requests to be excused Tuesday, December 4th to leave at 11:30. A motion is required.
Okay. That excuse is granted.
And Councilmember Weiss requests to be excused December 11th to arrive at 10:45 for personal business. That meets council policy.
Okay. Mr. Weiss is excused.
And that clears the desk.
Okay. Do we have any update on item number 2? Are we still awaiting the applicant? Okay, we will wait another minute and we'll see if we get any resolution on that and then go into closed session. Thank you for your patience. All right, pursuant to California state law, we will take up the closed session items right now. We'll come back into session for item number 2. That is still pending some discussions on continuation. If we can please clear the council chambers in the meantime, and if ongoing discussions on item 2 can take place outside of chambers, we will take up our closed session items right now. Any items that require public vote, we will do so shortly after we come out of closed session. Thank you. Welcome back into open session. If there's any votes that are required for the closed session items, can we run through those, please?
Yes, Mr. President. The first one is item number 26, and that's settlement in the case of Hicks versus City et al., and that's in the amount of $140,000.
Okay. Anybody wishing to be heard on that from the council? If not, let's go ahead, open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
Okay, that is approved. Next item, please.
Next item is item number 27, and that's settlement in the case of Bates versus City et al., and that's in the amount of $90,000, and also to approve the plaintiff's reinstatement to the position of wastewater worker 1.
Okay. Anybody wishing to be heard on this item? Seeing none, let's go ahead and open the roll, close the roll, and tabulate the vote.
11 ayes.
That is approved as well.
And that clears the desk. Item number 2 is still on the desk.
And do we have Mr. Reyes?
Yes, when we last left this, we had asked the representative if he would obtain the authority to allow for continuance for Tuesday, and can we have a response?
Yes, I did reach Gary Schaffel, the applicant, and he did agree to continue it to next Tuesday.
Okay.
So we'll continue for next Tuesday, and we'll pick this up again. It allows for a direct interaction with the applicant. I believe the case in point is the nexus for subsidies for those who are dislocated, and I think that's the question before us.
Okay. All right. Yes, Mr. Cardenas?
I just want to make sure that that's something that has to be sustained legally, the fact that that's been granted. Mr. City Attorney?
Yes, the applicant has to consent to that.
Yes.
Just want to make sure that on our end we're satisfied with the representation of the applicant is genuine and no.
Yes, Jerry Burge, the representative, he has indicated that he does represent the applicant, and he has been there with the applicant in the past, my understanding. And so, yes, I think we can accept his representation that the applicant has agreed to continue it, but it would be good to ask for the applicant to put something in writing.
That's my next question. Thank you. So, yeah, just for the record, I know it's on camera and verbally, but if we can have that in writing, as the city attorney suggested, we'd really appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, and please let the applicant know our thanks as well as the public's thanks for their testimony as well. So without objection, that will be continued until Tuesday, and now would be a time for adjourning motions. Can I please have everybody rise for adjourning motions? Yes. And without objection, we'll move item 11 forthwith. Seeing none, that will go forthwith. If we could have everybody please rise for adjourning motions. Colleagues, I ask today that we adjourn in memory of 3 individuals. First is Peter Landris, who is the father of my friend Sean Landris, who I went to junior high school, college, and graduate school with. Peter Landris, MD, was a child, adolescent, and child psychiatrist and psychoanalyst who died November 10, 2007 from complications of a rare neurological disease, progressive supranuclear palsy. He was born in Manhattan in 1930 and grew up in the city of Los Angeles, loved driving its freeways and telling friends how it looked in the 40s and 50s. He earned his undergraduate degree in UCLA and started medical school as a member of UCLA's medical school's inaugural class. Having taken a year off to study pharmacology at Stanford, he returned to graduate school in the second class and then took an internship in pediatrics at UCLA Hospital. He served for 3 years as a captain in the Army Medical Corps, stationed West Germany and Turkey, pursued what would become lifelong interests in history, art, archaeology, classical music, and opera, and returned to Los Angeles in 1961, started his residency at UCLA, and began his training in adult and child psychoanalysis. That year he married Holocaust survivor Renata Ray, a UCLA graduate student, and their only child, my friend Sean, was born in 1972. He had a very distinguished career, developed exceptional ability to understand and treat disturbed children, found the complexities of the human mind endlessly fascinating, was generous with his time, and happiest when his patients were able to gain understanding and control over their distress. In addition to maintaining a private practice, he was a member of faculty at the LA Psychoanalytic Society and Institute, now known as the New Center, and a member of many different associations, and a Distinguished Life Fellow of the American Psychiatric Association. We will miss his stories, his incredible memory, his insight, and his generosity. He's survived by his wife Renata and son Sean. And the mother of another one of my friends, one of my best friends from also junior high and high school, passed away the same day, Judy Arnold, who was well known to the theater community here in Los Angeles, and her obituary was both in the Daily News and the LA Times. Judy Arnold was kind of a den mother to me and my three best friends. We would go over to her house quite often, where she would not only take care of us, but tell us stories about the years she had in Los Angeles. Born in Washington, D.C. and raised in Beverly Hills, she graduated from UCLA with a bachelor's in music. She worked as a special events coordinator for music school and public relations at the Opera Workshop. And then she worked on movies and in the theater area, as well as with music for years, as a community liaison for the Los Angeles Philharmonic Youth Programs, the Screen Actors Guild Children Committee. And at her memorial service at Hillside, there were many famous actors, Jason Alexander, other producers, people who loved her from theater. And I think what spoke most powerfully is one of her co-collaborators said she never did anything that wasn't professional and of the highest quality. At the Tiffany Theater, she produced Give 'Em Hell, Harry with Jason Alexander, The Disputation, also at the Tiffany, Good, Bad, But Beautiful, Luna Park, and We Interrupt This Program, among others. She was a loving mother, a loving wife to Newt Arnold, who was a acclaimed first assistant director on a number of movies, including The Godfather, who predated her in death, but she leaves behind her sons, Jonathan and Evan Arnold. She lived in Encino and will be very, very deeply missed. Finally, I ask we adjourn in memory of Robert Victor, who passed away October 1st, 2007. He was a former Vice President and General Counsel of Pacific Bell Electronics Corporation, as well as Senior Vice President and General Counsel and Director for Corden International. He was an outstanding member of the Hollywood community, served as a member of the Hollywood Property Owners Alliance Board of Directors for 3 years, and acted as the chair of the board for Van Owen Realty Corporation. He was a vested property owner in the Hollywood Entertainment District and had a keen interest and role in improving the overall security of the area. He was always there for those he knew and worked with, displaying the characteristics of thoughtfulness, commitment, and liveliness. He's survived by his wife, Dorothy, and his 2 daughters, Priscilla and Pandora. May he rest in peace. Mr. Alarcon.
Yes, members. I'd like to ask that we adjourn in memory of Ethel May. Ethel May was the longtime director of the Pacoima Senior Center and a longtime resident of the Sylmar area. She was, I particularly remember when we were having a tough time because we actually had 2 senior centers, and when we opened the Bernardi Multipurpose Center, I'm sorry, not the Bernardi Center. When we opened the senior center, the city-sponsored senior center in Pacoima, there was quite a controversy about which senior center was going to get it. Ethel May was part of the Pacoima Senior Center, and we were able to negotiate and get both senior centers to manage the city's multipurpose center, and so and as a result, the opportunities for the center were enhanced, and it has become a center of activity ever since. Ethel was a great representative for the community of the Northeast San Fernando Valley, in particular Pacoima, a champion for those who were longtime disenfranchised. She was part and parcel of the development of senior services by the City of Los Angeles, and by her advocacy and by her job performance, and she will be sorely missed. She leaves her daughter Vanessa and her son Marlon. We send our condolences to them and the many, many friends and senior citizens in the Northeast San Fernando Valley who will miss Ethel, and thank her for her time on earth.
Thank you. Mr. Cardenas.
Thank you very much. I'd like to adjourn in the memory of Barbara Caesar, along with Janice Hahn, who is joining me in adjourning in her memory. Barbara Caesar was 56 years old, and she died on November 9th. As a young girl, Barbara Caesar dreamed of flying. Her frequent travels with her family took her all over the world. She lived in Hawaii, Japan, Iran, and Holland. Later on her own, she studied in Mexico and Greece. The exposure to different cultures and a wealth of rich experiences fed her love for the arts and also drawing. Barbara began pursuing her dream of flight by learning how to hang glide. It was through hang gliding that she met her late husband, Ed Caesar, whose intense love of flying was matched only by his love of life. She moved to California in 1980, working as a flight attendant with Flying Tigers. Barbara pursued her private pilot's license and continued her training, receiving her commercial and multi-instrument and seaplane licenses over the next several years. Barbara Caesar once again died at the age of 56, and her and her husband Ed built and refurbished the luxury interiors of privately owned airplanes. And she died at Providence St. Joseph Medical Center in Burbank from complications to minor surgery. So it was a shock to all of us when we found out that Barbara Caesar had passed away. Her and her husband started their business with $200 and built their business to what it is today, employing dozens of people and catering to royalty and celebrities and entrepreneurs from around the world. Over the years, Synchro Aircraft, their business, also sublet hangar space, and the World War II era hangar at Van Nuys was used for filming scenes, big budget movies, including 1994's Arnold Schwarzenegger's film True Lies, Batman and Robin, and from 1997, Harrison Ford's 1997 film Air Force One. Ed Caesar was a pilot and a champion hang glider, and he passed away in 2002. I met Barbara when she opened up her hangar when I became a councilman to thousands of children. She constantly had events for Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts, and she opened her business to other businesses and for people to join her in introducing children to flying. In 2006, Barbara Caesar helped organize an aviation career day at Van Nuys Airport to educate area youth about opportunities in the aviation and aerospace fields. This year's event attracted 1,400 high school students, and I was there, and I'll tell you, there was more than 1,400 kids there. They're being modest. She also helped arrange a collaboration between the San Fernando Valley Economic Alliance and the LA Unified School District to offer aviation and aerospace internships through Monroe High School in North Hills. She was born Barbara Foster in Washington, D.C. on March 15, 1951. She attended Richmond Polytechnic University and met her future husband in 1997. She was a licensed helicopter pilot and was instrument rated to fly airplanes. Janice Hahn talks about woman power. Let me tell you, Barbara Caesar was one heck of a woman. She was a tremendous human being, a great, great human being, first and foremost, and someone that when you met her and you got to know her, she would win your heart over, and she would engage many, many people in causes. That's how you get 1,400 kids to come to a hangar in Van Nuys, kids who have never been involved with flying, who really don't know what it's all about, and now dozens, if not hundreds of children in the San Fernando Valley are inspired by Barbara Caesar. And actually, my daughter, who's now 9 years old, was introduced to flying through Barbara Caesar, and she wants to be a pilot.
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Ms. Hahn.
I just want to add on to that. I actually, first time I met Barbara was back in Washington, D.C. when we were back there with the Chamber a couple years ago, and she was talking about this event at Van Nuys Airport and the opportunity for careers, particularly in the pilot aspect of that. And I say it a lot, girl power, but still, in 2007, there are still a lot of opportunities that I think young girls growing up think are not in a possibility for them. And I think piloting is still one of those careers that seems to be very male-dominated and seems not to be one of the careers that young girls think about going into. So Barbara really was a great role model and really used her charisma and her enthusiasm to introduce flying to all young people, but I think particularly she will have an impact on young girls as well, and I think you should encourage your daughter to go into that career. I'd also like us to adjourn in the memory of Julianne Sawarski, who passed away also at the young age of 56. Julianne was a lifelong resident of the South Bay and she lived in Hermosa Beach for the last 35 years. She taught 4th grade for LAUSD, including Broad Avenue in Wilmington and 92nd Street School in Watts. She's remembered by all who knew her for her great cooking, her wonderful hospitality, and her many, many kindnesses. She's survived by her daughters, Poppy and Jamie, her grandchildren, Aiden and Colin, her fiancé, Alec, her mother, Mary, and her brother, Dan Hoffman, who is executive director of the Wilmington Chamber of Commerce and a good friend of mine. Her memorial service will be held at St. James Catholic Church, Redondo Beach, at 2 p.m. this afternoon. Also, I'd like us to adjourn in the memory of Rudolph Blazevich, who was a longtime resident of San Pedro. He died on Monday. He was 82 years old. He was the father of John Blazevich, the CEO and founder of Contessa Premium Foods. Rudy was born in 1925 in Bosnia-Herzegovina. In 1948, he married, and in 1955, he escaped communist rule from the former Yugoslavia and settled in Los Angeles. Rudy was a trained European chef. However, once the family settled in San Pedro, most of his career was involved in the fishing industry. After his retirement in 1984, he was employed by Contessa Premium Foods as its corporate chef. He was an active member of the Southern California Croatian community. He traveled extensively throughout the world, visiting 6 of the 7 continents. He was to complete his final continental quest to Antarctica with his son and grandson, Andreas, in early 2009 to celebrate Andreas's high school graduation. In addition to his wife, Ljubica, son John, and grandson Andreas, Rudolph is survived by his brother, Drago, who lives in Croatia. His memorial service will be held at Mary Star of the Sea Church in San Pedro on Monday morning at 9 a.m. The Blazevich family is just such a huge part of San Pedro and really have given so much back to that community. This patriarch of the family will be greatly missed. And, I think our hearts and prayers are going to be with everyone who we've adjourned in memory of with Thanksgiving. I know it's going to be a particularly difficult time for people to be without their loved ones.
Any other adjourning motions? Seeing none, we wish everybody a very happy Thanksgiving, safe and prosperous Thanksgiving with your family and loved ones. And with that, Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll? And this meeting of the Los Angeles City Council is adjourned. We will next be in session next week on Tuesday, the 27th of November. Again, we hope to see many of you at the Hollywood Santa Parade this Sunday, starting at 5 p.m. on Hollywood Boulevard. Thank you, and this meeting is adjourned.